lives. Please mute everybody except for.
Okay, good afternoon. This is the Board of Standards and Appeals Public Review Session for May 19th, 2020, the 2 p.m. session. Please, there is no public testimony during the review session. Do not call in. The items that we'll be discussing is 2019-263BZ, 2122 Richmond Avenue, Staten Island.
Okay, and I see people in the waiting room. There are 5 people in the waiting room. This is a review session. Please hang up and call back in when your case is called. So
For a public hearing.
For the public hearing. So right now we're in review session and there is no public testimony. So please hang up. Okay, thank you. I see you all hung up. Thank you. All right, so the first one, 2019-263BZ, right? 2122 Richmond Avenue, Staten Island. Sorry. Oops. Sorry. We have proof of service of initial application to officials. We have proof of notice of hearing to officials and neighbors for this teleconference. That include the dial-in numbers for for this hearing. Community board recommends conditional approval. There are 2 very detailed letters of concern from Council Member Mateo, to which the applicant responded on May 6th. And I'm going to read some of the comments. It's very long. I'm just going to read some of the comments because there's a lot of concerns. Let's see. It says the BSA should seek to have addressed issues concerning traffic volume, access for special vehicle types such as trucks, placement of appropriately sized curb cuts and turning motions for ingress and egress to the site. Additionally, the impacts of the drive-through on the existing parking should be examined, and the phasing and timing of area traffic signals, given the increased volume on the site, must also be considered. Then there's some things that don't really have so much to do with us. Minimum open area requirement of 30 feet not provided adjacent to the district boundary. There's many things like that, but the applicant responded in a letter, but I would like the applicant to talk about the issues that were raised by the council member. We also have 1 letter from a neighbor with concerns, so not being specifically opposed, but having concerns, and another detailed letter of objection from another neighbor. That latter letter effectively asks that we allow more time for their homeowners association to review the issues. Both letters express concern about traffic noise and rodents, and the applicant must address these issues. And yes, of course, we'll give more time for their homeowners association to look into this, because their houses back right up against this site. The site is, other than its frontage on a wide highway, completely surrounded by residential uses with yards. So my first question is, how will this drive-through meet the D finding for this special permit relative to the character of the commercially zoned street frontage within 500 feet? The statement of facts barely touched on it, just sort of makes a conclusory statement that it does comply. And if that D finding can be met for a drive-through, for it to be acceptable at this site, the buffering from all the commercial uses to the residences must be significant. So I don't see that the size of this site lends itself to that effort, or at least the placement of the new building on the site, its orientation lends itself to that effort. And since this is new construction, which we've talked about in the last few hearings on these kinds of applications, the trash storage area must absolutely be located inside the building, not imposed on the many residential properties that back up to the proposed trash area. So it must be inside the building, can't chase it away to a corner so it doesn't annoy your patrons, but it annoys the neighbors. And the neighbors are right to fear the impacts of rodents. I'd like some explanation about the second building on the other building on the lot. There's an existing building. Why kind of, is it appropriate to add this building with a drive-through? It'd be different if you were just adding this building without a drive-through. But the other building, of course, has a need for parking and takes up space on the lot that could otherwise be used by the drive-through for more clearance. The Google photos that were provided show up to 11 cars parked on the lot for the T-Mobile store. That's that other business. And only 6 spaces are being reserved for that store under this proposal, and 6 for the Starbucks. So the 11 parked cars at the site also is not consistent with the Stonefield traffic report that claims that an electronic, that the needs of an electronic superstore is far less than 11 spaces. It's 6. That's on page 8 on that study. I see also the maneuverability diagram that was provided, but the U-turn, and that was something that was mentioned, I believe, by some of the letters in opposition. That U-turn must be made to pull into the drive-through. Seems very extreme to me. And the council member actually pointed this out. It seems very extreme. And, as a less experienced driver, for me, that would probably be more than a U-turn. That would be like a 3-point turn or something like that. You're assuming, real expertise on the part of the driver. So I'd also like to know, what's the trash pickup frequency? The lumen spread diagram I find not believable because it drops from 2 on the inside of the property line to 0 just a short distance away at the property line. So the noise study and backup information that were done with respect to the speakers, I found very instructive. Prepared by AKRF, who has, of course, noise engineers to work on this. Most of the time, we don't have noise engineers working on this question of the speakers for the drive-ins. It indicates that there is a noise reduction of only 7 to 8 dBA and not 28 dBA, as we've seen on a recent application, as a result of those noise barriers. There is also very good information about the speaker output, including a great list of don'ts by the company. The don'ts read like most of the applications that we see. Don't put it here, don't put it there, don't face it this way, and so on. And most of the applications we see do exactly that. So I found this really instructive. And what's interesting is this seems to be a standard spec sheet that's given by the manufacturer of the speakers to the purchasers. And we're never, let's say, we never have the benefit of the specific specification sheet because, of course, it has information that an applicant might not want us to see. So I do appreciate AKRF's openness about this. It's extremely helpful. And those were my comments. So hold on a second. Bless you, Commissioner Shanda.
Thank you. As I was reviewing it, there were a few things that I was trying to take into account: A, the location of the site, and B, what would be permitted as of right, and not requiring any discretionary review, and what is being asked and the incremental difference of that. That's how I was approaching it. So based on the underlying zoning and what would be permitted, one could have an as of right commercial use where it would have to meet the underlying zoning and the underlying parking requirement. And so if that were the factor, if taking that into account, I did not have an issue with the number of parking spaces that T-Mobile would have versus, because the total amount of parking spaces is what the zoning looks for. And if there is a need for parking for a T-Mobile person who has to park, and there is a parking available on the Starbucks site, they would park there because it doesn't say dedicated or exclusively for Starbucks or anything like that. And the other thing that was interesting is that this Starbucks proposal, according to the documents that's been submitted and in the narrative, I believe I read it, that they're not proposing to have any sit-down area in the Starbucks. It's a purely a pickup area, and a drive-through is going to be the primary part of it. So there's not going to be that much of a sit-down. It's going to be, they didn't, so with that, I really did not have an issue with the amount of parking that is being provided on the site, given the totality of the use that is being proposed. The question then becomes, in my mind, is what is, how much of an impact the drive-through would have on the surrounding neighborhood and the vehicular traffic and pedestrian traffic on Richmond Road. I don't think there will be that much of an impact on the pedestrian traffic because the pedestrian volume is not that high. So it comes down to the vehicular traffic. Richmond Road is a very wide road, and it has, and this traffic is not going to, this use is not going to generate a new amount of use. It is going to be, if you had an existing commercial use, it would be that type of use. Or in this case specifically, it would be a drive, it would be most of the traffic would not be a new traffic that would come just for the Starbucks. It would be vehicles that are driving by to go to from point A to point B, and will stop by to pick up their tea, coffee, whatever, hot chocolate, and then move on. So I was convinced by the fact that it would not result in an increased amount of vehicular traffic. So then the remaining question is, how would it, is it well positioned, and how would it, how much of an impact it would have on the surrounding residential use? And my primary concern with the surrounding residential use is the housing complex that is right behind the property line. So my comments are mostly about wanting to make sure there is adequate landscaping, buffering, noise attenuation along the residential lot line, that the noise attenuation that is being talked about from the device, from the menu device, how well that is, where it is situated, and how that would, whether the noise would transfer from there all the way to the residential lot line. And those really were my primary concerns. So I wanted to know the depth of the landscaping bed, and the findings also in this case needs to be more site specific. It was very generic. They need to provide more narratives and tie the site to the conditions and the proposed measures and the neighborhood context. So that was a very broad overall element I had.
Mm-hmm. But you didn't have specific comments about what was being proposed? I mean, you wanted to know what the depth of the beds are. Not
right, the depth of the bed, the lumen count, the count, and whether the attenuation that is being proposed, would it be adequate in terms of from the menu board and from the vehicular traffic that will be generated from the drive-through for the residential. To me, that was not very clear from the documents, because, you know, people, so that I needed to more clarification. And because of that, I think we need to have more landscaping, more thorough acoustical buffer along the rear lot line.
Did you see ACRF's noise analysis?
I did, and I
very detailed analysis, and they said where they talked about the speaker, and they talk about the output of the speaker being, I don't remember, 15 decibels above ambient all the time, and then that the acoustical fence shielding steps it down by 7 or 8 decibels, and so.
So my other comment was, so where you have the drive-through window where the pickup is happening, isn't there also some kind of a noise level that would get generated? Was that analyzed?
I thought there's only one speaker.
But because there are people on, you know, the headphone, they'll say, oh, here's your coffee. And someone say, I didn't ask for this. So I also want to want an assurance that along that edge, because that's the portion that abuts the rear lot lines and the backyards.
Drive-through menu board. I'm just looking for where the speaker even is now. Can't find the speaker. There's a proposed drive-through pre-order menu board. Then there's a proposed proposed ordering kiosk, right? That's where you
Right.
which is still opposite, and that's where they did the noise study, right?
Okay,
It's
right.
adjacent residential property, but not opposite the one at the rear, right? And so
Right.
they said that the biggest impact is going to be on this adjacent residential property, and that it'll step down because of distance by the time it gets to the rear. And then, so I'd like you to take a harder look at the noise, very detailed. It's actually one of the most elaborate ones we've seen, but there isn't a sectional view where we've been asking for a sectional view. But it does give us a lot more information because AQRF gave us specs. I see Commissioner Otley Brown's hand up. So let me move on to, do you have other comments?
No, those were my comments.
I'm going to move to Commissioner Otley Brown. You have to unmute yourself though.
So I had raised my hand in answer to the speaker at the window where you make the payment. I've never noticed a speaker there because the window's open and you can speak directly to the representative, the cashier, or whoever's giving you your food.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
So
so there's
not through a speaker, there's a window.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Okay, that was one of the questions. Okay.
Right, so that's what I had raised my hand.
That's just a human noise level. It's not amplified.
It's not amplified.
Right.
Got it. Thank you.
Until, of course, they implement new safety measures where, of course, you won't be talking to a person through a window. It'll be through some kind of a safety shield, and there will be a little bit of a speaker system like in an ancient bank or something like that.
I have yet to see that, having gone through Starbucks drive-through for the past 6 weeks.
Oh, really? Oh.
Yeah.
No face shields or anything between?
They have
Wow.
face masks on. Some of them have gloves and face masks. Others have face masks. The window is open. Sometimes there's a partial plexiglass, which would cover their face, but the window is open lower because they're taking your phone, scanning it, or taking money and handing you your drink.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. So but I think now you can give your comments otherwise.
Yeah. Right. So I agree with you, Chair, about the siting of the trash container should not be along the residential border. But I also think that there should be a distance on the site plan from the ordering kiosk to the nearest residential home, which is not there. So we could see in feet how far it is. My major comment, though, has to do with the siting of the drive-through lane and the difficulty that would arise from trying to get onto the drive-through lane from Richmond Avenue. I agree with the council person and the community board. It would be a U-turn that would be extremely difficult to make, especially considering the speed at which people would be exiting Richmond Avenue. And I think because of that, this site actually needs a complete redesign in terms of the shape of the building, the orientation of the building, and the curb cuts. I think there should be more of a straight-on drive-through with a curb cut in the northernmost part of the lot so that literally you make a right turn onto the drive-through lane. However, that would cause difficulty in terms of the number of reservoir spots. And so therefore, I think the building should be rotated so that its widest side is actually, I guess, parallel to Richmond Avenue rather than its most narrow side. So it would be wider, but less depth. And that would probably allow you to move the pickup window further south on the lot, which would allow you to have more reservoir cars fitting into the drive-through. And this would probably make it difficult for those parking spaces to stay where they are, but you would be freeing up a lot of space in front of the building parallel to Richmond Avenue where you could have slanted 45-degree parking for your 6 spaces. So I think they really have to, since they haven't built the building yet, literally start from scratch, because it's just not safe. People are going to try and make that turn, but it's probably going to necessitate them backing up to get into the drive-through and then completing their turn, almost like a 3-point turn, like you had said, Chair. But that's dangerous in a curb cut where you have cars that are trying to leave the site and other cars right behind you who are trying to get into the site, as well as the occasional pedestrian. So for all those, I feel like they should start from scratch.
Agreed. Thank you very much. Appreciate the detailed review. Commissioner Sheta.
Thank you, Chair. I want to start with thanking Commissioner Brown for her comments. That's actually, I believe this is the bottom line for the maneuverability of this site. It needs to be redesigned totally. Then I'll jump to the noise part, which I believe is lacking too many information that were not provided. I'll explain myself in a moment. Number one, there are too many things that were not like specified on the drawings, such as the theater and speaker post types. They need to be specified on
Say that one more time, such as the what?
the communicator and the speaker post types. They need to be specified the same specification that is mentioned in the report by AKRF. This is number one. Number two, this is my understanding that all the units, DBAs, are in sound pressure units. I need a confirmation for that in the KRF report. Then I'll jump to the contents of the report itself. If you please can open the report on page 2.
So wait, so slow down. The report is located in the initial folder, right?
Yes, correct.
It's after the existing proposed plans, right? That's their acoustical AKRF acoustical report.
And it's dated January 23rd.
Oh, their report updated January 23rd, 2020, right?
That's correct.
Okay. Got it.
If you go to page 2, the chart, the table at the top, this is it. This is what drives the conclusion for the entire report. This is what made the proposed, I would say, low quality barrier works to attenuate the sound for this site. I was actually, when I read this, I was scratching because I've seen other sites that needed much higher efficient sound barrier to attenuate the sound, while this site, it's that drive-through is much closer to the property line. And although the attenuation capacity of the proposed barrier was kind of low for me, 7 to 8 dBs. That's all. This is the noise reduction capacity of that proposed barrier. If you look at the white paper, that was one basis for this study, the white paper by the manufacturer, by HME, and it's located in the initial folder as well. If you can open that for me, please.
It's called HME Engineering Department White Paper, 4 pages.
That's correct. Yes, I have sent this along with the calculations I performed, and in addition, I found it in the initial folder actually afterwards. So if you open that and you look at page 2, the paragraph, it specifies the sound intensity from the speaker that's proposed for this site at different places, different locations. And it says on the front, it's 90. Then at 17, it drops to 66. Then it doesn't drop to 60 until 50 feet.
Until what?
So if you look at the paragraph at the top, you see 3 bullet points on page 2 of the white paper. And then if you read through, start from the second sentence where it says, under these conditions, the sound pressure level 1 foot in the front of the speaker is 90. And then if you go away at 17 feet, it drops to 66. And then if you keep moving, you get to 60 at 55 feet. These are the 3 benchmarks that should be taken, and the sound at pressure or the sound intensity at any distance from the speaker should be based on these. So if you go back to the report and you look at the chart at the top of page 2, it says at 5 feet, you get 66. At 12 feet, you get 60. This is if you're moving in the front of the wave, like the source is moving east and you're moving east. But if you're moving perpendicular to that, at 14 feet, you get 66, and 32, you get 60. So how did they get to these numbers? I presume that they took the numbers in the white papers and they plugged them. If you open the file I sent, that's called sound calculations. If you don't have it, I can share my screen.
No, don't do that because, yeah.
Okay.
The file you sent on May 11th?
Yes,
Okay,
it's
so,
called sound calculations.
okay, hold on 1 second. Sound calculations, got it. Okay. Does everybody have it? Does everybody find who needs to? Yes. I have nods for at least from 2 commissioners. Okay. Okay, go
So
ahead.
if you look at the chart, that's what I did. I took the numbers in the white papers. At 1 foot, if you go up to the first blue circle, it's 90. And then at 17 feet, it's 60 something. And then at 66, it's whatever. And based on the description
And at
in the
55
white paper, I just connected the dots. I'm sorry?
So, yeah, it's at 55 feet away, it's 59 decibels, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
So these are the 3 points. And because of the nature of the sound wave, it's an exponential intensity decay. So the equation you look at that says y equal this and this is what represents the variation of the sound intensity away from the speaker in the direction of the propagation of the sound wave. So if you want to get at 5 feet or whatever, you just plug in this equation. If you want to get the intensity at 5 feet, you just set x equal 5, and then you calculate. And when I calculated that in the chart from AKRF, at 5 feet, I didn't get 66. I got 76 actually. It's 10 more. And so on. 12, instead of 60, I got 62. So it's, for me, based on the analysis I have performed, and these are the bases that I just described. These are the bases of analysis, and they should, a basis like that should be included in the report. That's why I'm saying the report is lacking some information that they were hitting. We got some numbers, dropped in this chart, and we should buy them. So because of, like I said, because of the comparison between other projects and this project, I didn't buy them, and I did the analysis myself. And at 5 feet, I didn't get 66, 10 more, 10 higher. And at 12, I got a higher value. So if you take these numbers and you go with them to the fence, if you look at the sound calculation chart or file, at 72 feet, you have 58. At 43, you get 61. At 100, you get 56. So this is not within the tolerated you deduct the 7 to 8 number, let's say at 72 feet or at 43 feet, which are the two numbers that the fences are at, if you deduct the 7 or the 8, the remainder of that 61 minus 7 or minus 8, it's above 50. And again, 58 minus 7 is 50. So that doesn't like comply with the city requirements for sounds close to a residential property line. So what I'm asking AKRF is to please give me the basis for the numbers that you put on your analysis report in the chart on page 2. The white paper doesn't have the intensity at 5 feet. It doesn't have it at 12. It doesn't have it at 14 perpendicular. It doesn't have it at 32. Give me the basis for coming up with these numbers. Otherwise, I believe what I did is intact, and I believe this analysis need to be re-looked at.
Mhm. Okay, fair. So what it's indicating based on what you're saying is that if indeed that sound attenuation system, whatever it is, because I don't know that we got a copy of that. I don't remember whether that's included.
What we got is not a specification. It's a design aid that the manufacturer produced to help people who perform sound analysis to use. This is kind of given the intensity of sound at different distances from the speaker, and they couldn't be. The reason they issued this is because it was impossible for somebody who's doing engineering analysis to perform like a modeling for this. So what they did is they performed a real world test, and they measured sound at different distances from the speaker, and they measured them at 3 points, and then they put these measurements in the white paper to help people who are performing analysis to run their analyses. So they are not actually sheets nor specification.
No. So that what I'm saying is the AKRF report says that they have two different noise barrier walls that they're using for the 7 to 8 decibel step down, but they didn't provide us, I don't believe, with the specifications that indicate what the step down is. There's two: Kinetics Noise Control and Noise Barriers LLC Quiet Line VStack. So we don't have those specs, whereas the other applications we see use this thing called Acoustifence, and people claim that it's a step down of 20 something dBA, but I don't know really whether Acoustifence makes that representation or they make the representation.
That's why I called it low quality, like acoustical barrier. If you look at actually the white paper, the manufacturer recommendations, if you look at page 3 or 4, the section that you like most, do and don't, if you look at bullet number 2, it says use brick or concrete walls to isolate.
Right.
But in this kind of case, they didn't use brick or concrete wall. They used that acoustical like 7 to 8 reduction fence, which again, if you use that 7 to 8 and you rerun the analysis based on the explanations I just went through, I don't believe it's gonna fly. They're gonna need more reputable acoustical isolation.
Mhm.
So that's why I am asking them to take a look at that analysis one more time. And when they submit this next time, we need backup for the numbers that were dropped on the chart at the top of page 2.
Right. So, and to just pick up from what Commissioner Otley Brown said, and I totally agree, and I think you did too. I think the site, because the site needs a redesign, and if you were going straight in to come to the drive-through, arguably the speaker would be located pointing out into the commercial portion of the property and not up against the residential buildings, the Doe Court residences. So hopefully then you'd be ordering early, and you'd be ordering at a place where, and I don't know if that works because I know you have a queuing issue and all that sort of stuff, but the idea would be that the speakers cannot be right up against the residential property. I just kind of, in terms of the redesigning of it, I'm fearing that we'll end up seeing that speaker system almost 2 feet away from the residences to the rear, and it's just going to be worse.
I believe they could put the solution that like accommodate the maneuverability of the cars of the to the drive-through, and in the meantime accommodate the placement or the alignment of that speaker. They could align the drive-through in such a way to put the speaker at least in a similar position to what it is right now. I'm not going to think about it that much, but I believe it's doable. They could think about it, and if they claim that it's not doable, they owe us an explanation for why it's not doable. This is one thing. Regarding the luminous spread, yes, I agree with you. I don't think we have big issues, but yes, I agree with you that values sometimes, I have highlighted like 2 or 3 spots where values are like 4 or 3 and then boom, 0. I don't know how this could happen unless these values are at 3 feet and the fence is, let's say it's 4, and they are considering the fence as a light barrier. So light is not going to go through the fence. If this is the case, I would urge them to give us the values at the top of the fence, or just ignore the fence like it's not there, because light is going to bridge over the fence and it's going to go through directly from the light pole to the adjacent property. So it's not 0, I believe. Because light is not sound. It's different. The light pole is up in the sky. The sound speaker is just 3 feet above. Regarding parking, I don't believe that the number of parking spots is like, okay, I'm not okay with the number provided. The reason for that, the criteria for the parking, they are saying 1 spot for every 300 square feet, but they forget the outdoor seating area at all. If you look at the outdoor seating, you get 6 spots or even probably more. I didn't count the number, but if you run a nice summer day, it's breezy and people want to hang out, and you get 6 customers, you got 6 cars, and these 6 cars are actually sitting. So you're gonna take all the available parking, and then you're gonna leave people in the store without any available parking. So if you're providing outdoor seating, at least I'm not sure if what I'm asking for is legit, but at least consider the outdoor seating space in the parking calculations. Right. Otherwise, it's simply, when you look at it, it's common sense. If you get 6 seats and you get 6 people, 6 car, parking is gone, no available parking. And I believe the site is big and they could provide more than 6 spaces for that site. I don't know why there is a big gap between the parking for the T-Mobile building and the parking for the proposed Starbucks. So this big gap, this big driveway could be reconfigured in such a way to provide some more parking.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I also want to note, now that I finally looked at the plan, there are no floor plans on the interior. We don't know that there isn't seating on the interior, which, by the way, is a Starbucks model. They're the ones kind of who invented the idea of going to a coffee place and hanging out in it. So, or I don't know if they invented it, but they were very close behind the ones who invented it. And we don't have interior drawings, so we don't know what the.
But even if you go with like the best case scenario, you don't have interior sitting area or seating area. This is like the conservative scenario, nothing inside, but you still have people who are, stopping by, buying coffee, buying whatever, and they need to park somewhere. And if you get the seats outside occupying the parking, you're going to leave these people with no option to park. But probably, I don't know where they can park other than like on site.
Mhm.
The other thing is the grading plan. Uh, I need them to take a look at the finished grades to avoid runoff out of the site to the street. Because when I looked at the grading plan, this is, I believe, C5. If you look at C5 and you look at the spots close to the exit of the driveway, you can see that if you get some, like even minor clog, even without clogging actually, the way that the pavement finish grades, the proposed finish grades are configured would allow surface runoff from inside the site to outside, which I believe is not, it shouldn't happen. Whatever inside the site, runoff wise, should be contained and diverted to the interior catch basins, not to the Richmond Ave.
Mhm. Okay. Anything else?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and Commissioner Shavetta, you're muted. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I agree with the statements made by you, Chair. I think we should pay particular attention to the concerns of the councilman, which was in part echoed by the neighbors. And I'd like to hear further responses from the applicant with focus on maneuverability, a plan for refuse, and noise attenuation, so not to disturb the quiet enjoyment of the residential neighbors. I won't go much deeper on this because I believe my colleagues have already sufficiently addressed same, and I share Commissioner Shetta's concerns and requests with regard to the sound and lumen studies. I appreciate Commissioner Otley Brown's suggested redesign. I think that should be further explored. Since this is not built, and while I understand there may be some valid hesitation, but a relocation of the drive-through window may resolve some of the neighbors' noise issues.
Mhm.
With regard to the parking, as Commissioner Shanda stated, there is no sit-down service. I suppose I can imagine some would get their coffee and have a seat, but I would suspect that these are not the clients that this Starbucks or this type of Starbucks is catering to. It seems like it's more of a grab a cup and go to work or school or wherever. But like the chair stated, I'd like to see a floor plan to be sure. We don't have one on file. I believe this may alleviate some of our concerns with regard to parking. With regard to traffic, we had an application from a Taco Bell, which incidentally was some way south on Richmond Avenue. I mention it because we talked about the type of traffic that was generated and that the particular use is not bringing people into the neighborhood, but servicing those that would be in the area anyway. I think this would further support why it's a drive-through. People are going and coming off a very busy Richmond Avenue. And this is further supported by one of the notes in by the neighbors stating how many other Starbucks are in the area. Chair, you mentioned the D finding. I'm sorry?
No, it's okay.
Chair, you mentioned the D finding. And while I agree, it is mostly surrounded by residential because that's what the whole rear of that property is. But the frontage on Richmond Avenue is very much, this is very much in character to what's facing Richmond Avenue. You'll find Barnes and Nobles, other restaurants and eateries, all up and down Richmond Avenue, which within a few miles, you'll less than that, you'll hit the Staten Island Mall. While it is something that I think we should be very cautious of because of the character of the homes behind it, I wouldn't feel comfortable saying that this on its location on Richmond Avenue doesn't fit the character of Richmond Avenue.
No, that's actually not the finding. That's why I wanted to be very specific. So the first thing I'm looking at is a Google satellite, and I'm just looking at the frontage on Richmond. And the frontage on Richmond to the right, whatever direction that is all residential. There's like this very vegetated, like almost forested area, and then house. Never mind what's going on behind. I'm talking about the frontage on Richmond. And to the left, there, behind the T-Mobile, there are houses all the way to the corner on this side of the street. And on the other side, it's a park, right? And the finding is specific. The finding is the character of the commercially zoned street frontage within 500 feet of the subject premises reflects substantial orientation towards the motor vehicle based upon the level of motor vehicle generation attributable to the existing commercial uses contained within such area, i.e. the 500 feet, and to the subject eating or drinking place, excluding the accessory drive-through. So that's a finding that has to be made. I don't know if it can be made because within 500 feet is residential frontage. That's why I asked this question. So I know that you've already done a site visit. So if you could do another one with respect to that,
Sure.
that would be great. Okay, go continue.
Oh, no, that, I have no further comments.
Okay, so I see Commissioner Shanda with her hand up. You're muted.
No, Commissioner Shanda, stop speaking. You're muted.
Oh, sorry. I want to clarify a couple of things with regards to the parking that is being provided and proposed. So in the zoning resolution, under use group 6, it separates out eating and drinking establishment, including outdoor table services, and that is use group 6 with a parking requirement category B, and eating and drinking establishment with entertainment, which is also use group 6 with parking requirement category B. That means the parking requirement category for either of those establishments is the same. It's a C12, so it's 1 per 300 square feet per floor area. So regardless of whether they're providing an outdoor seating or not, or it's all indoors, the parking requirement is 1 per 300 in a C12.
Right.
So I really think we need to focus on the drive-through mechanism and the placement of the building and the traffic circulation, and not the parking requirement. That is being completely addressed through the underlying zoning regulation.
Mm-hmm. So so we have a traffic study, and so that's what this is about, right? So there's the zoning requirements, and then there's a traffic study that makes a claim about utilization rates, right? And that's the disconnect. If the study is coming up with a different result because it's not looking at the facts on the ground, then we have different utilization rates. Like observing, like for instance, I looked at the 11 parking spaces taken by the T-Mobile, whereas AKRF used this iconic superstore and came up with 6. I'd like to know where that comes from, because we see 11 spaces in reality. So, and I think that's the same thing. It's one thing to look at utilization and another, and because there's an EAS involved, right? That's where we can look at both things. We always do. We look at both the zoning and we look at the EAS. Okay, that's.
Well, I think in this case, the utilization, I think this is in terms of, as Commissioner Shibata mentioned, and this is going to be a drive-through facility. It's not going to generate additional traffic. So where people are going to come and sit and enjoy and relax and eat. This is really people going to work and coming back from work for a quick pickup delivery. Anyway, that's for the applicant to clarify and respond to. With regards to the orientation of the building, if I recall from my site visit, the site currently has 2 curb cuts. There is one that is right next to the Rockland Avenue, and there's one that's further away from Rockland Avenue. So I'm not sure why they are not reusing the curb cut that is away from Rockland Avenue and keep the orientation of the building as is, but use that as the entrance from the drive-through and then circle around, and then where the section of the drive-through that starts being parallel to Richmond Avenue can become the additional parking spaces if need be. along Richmond Avenue and rather than being against the Starbucks building. So that could be another way of, without having to reposition the building much, but it's just kind of changing the orientation of the approach of the drive-through. Because you will just enter straight, make a right turn, and you'll be in the drive-through queue.
Right, okay.
And make a U-turn. It would require, then the pickup would be more on the U-turn and not by the residential area. So the interior layout may have to change.
The interior. I don't know. That's for them to work out.
Right.
I'm going to recognize Tracy Benke, who had her hand up, and she's muted herself. So unmute yourself.
Hi. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify that this is actually a type 2 application.
Oh.
So there is no EAS as per our type 2 memo. However, the traffic study and backup files have been sent to the Department of Transportation for review based on the concerns we saw coming into this application. They have no comments at this point, but final comments. But the engineering review team did point out that there's a MTA bus stop at the site of the proposed curb cut, the west side of Richmond Avenue, just north of Rockland Avenue. So they want the applicant to get in touch with the MTA because that is shown as being relocated, but there is no more information. So they need that information as well.
Okay. Great, thank you. Okay. Yeah, I mean, obviously, this is a very controversial case. We have a lot of people super concerned about it. It's another reason why we do these kinds of studies, right? And then Commissioner Sheta also has his hand up. I'm recognizing him. Okay.
Thank you, Chair. When I spoke about the parking and including the outdoor seating, I wasn't sure about the provisions of the zoning resolution when it comes to this.
Right.
But I would say if the zoning resolution make him the same, make a guy without outdoor seating and a guy with outdoor seating, that for me, that doesn't make sense because like I said again, if we have 5 or 6 outdoor seats and we have 6 parking provided and these seats got occupied, there is no place to park for people who are picking from inside the store. So I don't know if this is that might be one of the things that need to be fixed in the zoning resolution. And I believe we have many things to be. So the other thing I agree with them when they say that if they reuse the curb cut north of the site, they could come up with a small S curve near the the drive-through where it gets to a quarter circle. They could just start from that quarter circle and make a smooth S curve to the curb cut and just use this for cars entering to the drive-through, and it's gonna change nothing. I believe actually oppositely, they could even drag the drive-through south a little bit to provide wider buffer to any future residential use for the adjacent lot. If houses get built in the adjacent lot to the north in the future, I believe it's much better to have the buffer more wide than it shows right now.
Yeah. No, I agree. I don't, that's another part of my comment that the buffers that are shown adjacent to the residential properties are completely inadequate for this.
Yep.
Because it's one thing if at the corner you get a big fat area, but it's not okay that there's hardly any distance at all between the drive and the property line at other areas. It's yeah, again, that kind of thing where they want what they want, but they're not really cognizant of the impact that it's going to have on the residences, and having an acoustical barrier we see isn't enough. You really need, and I actually love the don'ts, one of which says don't rely on vegetation to lower it says specifically, Don't face, so here's the thing that it says not to do. Don't face the speaker post towards busy streets because that increases ambient noise levels, right? Don't place the speaker post on a curve in the lane. Curves force vehicles to be further away from the speaker. Don't face the speaker post or the drive-through lane at adjacent residences, like is done right here and in most of our applications, right? Remember that the highest sound levels are likely to be directly opposite the post and off the front of vehicles. Don't turn the outbound level up higher than necessary. And then finally, don't rely on vegetation to reduce sound. There you go. And of course their do is, use some very intense sound barrier system like a concrete wall.
Yep.
Directed towards suburban situations where there's plenty of room to locate.
The AVC thing is like a double-edged knife. It could be very helpful and it could be very dangerous as well. Because the way this thing works, it sniffs the ambient noise level. So let's say the ambient is at 40. Then it triggers the speaker to output 15 above that. So it's 65. So if you face this to a busy street where you have crazy noise levels, 90, the output will be 105. It's 100, the output will be 115. So that's why they are saying to not do it that way. It's a very sensitive system and it needs to be handled correctly, operation-wise.
Right. Okay, great. Thank you. Any other comments before we go on to the next one? We're still in review session. Any other comments before we move on? No? Okay, thank you.
Item number 2, 2019-266 VZ 1498 Clove Road, Staten Island.
Okay. We have proof of service of initial application to officials. We have proof of notice of hearing for this teleconference for 5/18, 18th to officials and neighbors. Community board recommends approval. This is a very modest proposal to extend the ambulatory care facility into the remainder of the first floor of an existing recently reconstructed mixed-use building, increasing the floor area for the ambulatory care use by 694 square feet above the 1,500 square feet that's allowable as of right. The building and parking area are newly finished and look very good. I know Commissioner Shibeta went on a site visit and took some good photographs, and I believe they were put into the SharePoint folder. Please advise if they're not there. The findings, though, require one, that the minimum lot width and area requirements of section 23-35 be met. So they need to address that in the findings. Also, the findings require that, quote, the amount and type of open area, unquote, be compatible with the character of the neighborhood. Here, open space exceeds the minimum required by the zoning resolution. However, there is an extensive amount of parking within the required open space. The architect must provide calculations to show compliance with section 25-64, that it doesn't exceed the maximum amount of open space covered by parking and driveways. The architect also needs to show the landscape area calculations to support its statement that there is 22.4% landscaping on the lot, and show that the extent of the paved parking area is compatible with neighborhood character. That's the one that I'm struggling with a little bit. I rely on sort of the aerial views that show residential almost everywhere, but then there's an occasional, like a church or something with a parking lot. Does that fit within, is that compatible with neighborhood character? The landscaping drawing needs details for the planting beds, showing curbs and wheel stops. I don't know what they did. You can see sort of on the photographs that they're pretty elaborately done, but we need those details. And also the drawings and statement of fact are inaccurate about how the waiver for parking works. Section 25-331 states that the 25-331 waiver does not apply to ambulatory care facilities in R3 in a lower density growth management area. So they need to correct that because it's just inaccurate. But in any event, more spaces are being provided than are required. So it's not affecting anything, but it's not correct. They need to provide the DOP approved drawings for the project as constructed, because I'm hoping that the DOP drawings went through some of these concerns about zoning, and that also that it wasn't self-certified. And then I'd like them to explain how the handicap ramp works relative to the entrance and location of the ADA parking space. The site plan doesn't show, because they're really far away from each other. So if you actually parking in the ADA parking space, you have to go all the way around the building to begin to go up the ramp, which makes no sense to me, unless they moved it and it's not actually the way it's shown on the site plan. Also, the site plan is missing the steps that go up from grade to the entrance. It just doesn't show it at all. The statement of fact states that the cellar is for storage. So then I'd like to know why there's a full 3-piece bathroom in the cellar. And they need to show the sign location on the site plan and elevations. Those are my comments. So Commissioner Shanda.
Okay. As you mentioned, it's a rather modest proposal. However, in order for the project to be compatible with the surrounding area and since it is built, what the application does not show, and I would like the applicant to provide, is to provide a lumen plan and provide the photos that were from Commissioner Shibata's site visit. I was trying to figure out what the fence type is. So I would like to know what kind of fence type is it? Is it an opaque fence? And where and I think the medical trash storage should be indoors. Right now it's shown as outdoors. And what is the proposed pickup for medical waste? I would like to know the hours. And also, this is a question I have. Since the property abuts Clove Road, which is a kind of a main thoroughfare, and it doesn't have that much of residential use along Clove Road, my question and concern was during after hours, is there a possibility of the parking lot area being misused, and should we consider securing the entrance to the parking area, knowing that there are 2 residential units there, or there will be 1 residential units there, but somewhere to secure it to make sure that there isn't a misuse of loitering or something like that happening in the parking area.
Interesting. Okay, thank you. And Commissioner Watley-Brown.
So in terms of this project being designed with the character of the surrounding residential neighborhood in mind, I think they need to show us how this site measures in terms of their key indicators versus the neighborhood. So their lot coverage versus the average lot coverage in the neighborhood, total height versus the average in the neighborhood, front yards, side yards, rear yards, and percentage landscaping and percentage pavement versus the average for the neighborhood, in order to prove to us that this is going to be sensitive to the residential character.
Right, that's right. And actually, we do have, there was another application we did not too long ago where we asked for all of those things. It went on for quite some time, that application. So if they need guidance about what it is that we asked for, that's the application that the project manager, so that's Daryl, should be giving them. Okay, Daryl, you got that? I don't remember where that application.
Island Boulevard in Staten Island.
Island Boulevard? Okay.
Ackerman Center Fit or Ackerman, whoever.
Yeah, that was the long one. Oh, God.
Yeah.
Okay, Highland Boulevard, okay.
Highland, yeah.
Highland, right. So I just want Daryl to acknowledge that it's Highland Boulevard. Maybe he can't acknowledge because he's muted. Where is I lost him? Okay, there he is. He's muted and I'm going, oh, I'm asking him to unmute. Okay. All right. You got it. Good. Thank you. Okay. Anything else, Commissioner Oliver? No, that was a no, even though she muted herself, but I could read the word no. Okay.
No.
Commissioner Sheta.
Thank you, Chair. I started with the parking very quick. I believe the mistake they made is they didn't read through all the way down. They read section 2531 and then 33. 31 is the provisions, 33 is the waiver. And we got it, we're happy with that. If they read through exceptions, and the exception says to consider the waiver for a diagnostic facility or a facility like this, you need to have a DOH approved hospital on that site previously, which is not the case for this application, of course. That they mentioned in their statement of facts that they had house before. So the waiver doesn't apply and they need to fix. Good news is if you apply the regulations for a spot for every whatever 100 square feet, they get required 6 spots, they provided 15, good. You need to change nothing, but just some wording in the statement of fact. So this is the parking thing. The luminous spread, I'm happy today that two commissioners, non-engineering, one of them talked about the reconfiguration because of the maneuverability. The other one is talking about the luminous spread. Yes, the hour of operation is until 7 for the most of the weekdays, and I believe one of the weekends. So if it's up to 7 and in winter, it's going to be dark while the facility is in operation and the parking is in use, which mandates that the light pools will be on during dark, and they will definitely, because of their locations, they will shed light to the residential adjacent to the property, which is very close, by the way. The light poles are kind of like really close to the property line. So we need luminous spread to show that no excessive lighting or no lighting will be impacting the adjacent residential. What else? For the landscape, I wasn't able to read through to understand what kind of planting will be provided in the 4 feet planting spread. So I believe that need to be shown as well.
Right.
That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. And Commissioner Shibeta, unmute yourself, please.
Thank you, Chair. I don't want to be repetitive. I certainly agree with the statements made by my colleagues. I just want to note that this use, I was very surprised by how active this use was when I did my site visit. As you can see from the photographs, there are several cars that are parked there. So I really think we should pay very close attention to the impact this has on the residential neighbors.
So to that point, so it's an active use and it's with the existing ambulatory care that is 600 and something square feet smaller, right? So that, I think that's what you're talking about, right? It's going to be that much bigger with that many more exam rooms. What's it going to do?
Right, there already wasn't. Now it could very well be because of how they're addressing the COVID-19 crisis. Maybe there are more cars parked there, so there can only be one person in at a time, and more people are waiting by. I don't know, but it seems very busy. And if there's going to be enlargement, we need to ensure that this doesn't negatively affect the people around it.
Great, thank you. Anybody else? Last minute, anything? Okay. Thank you.
Okay, item number 3, 2020-27, 403 Concord Avenue, the Bronx. Excuse me. This is a review session, not public testimony.
Sorry. So, what was I say? This This is a school, and we're doing this on an expedited review. It was submitted only in the end of March, and for schools, we do expedited reviews whenever we can. We have proof of service of initial application to officials. We have proof of notice of hearing to officials and neighbors for this May 18th teleconference hearing. I note that on this notice of hearing that went out on April 16th, the Zoom access info was not provided, and directed the recipient of the notice to check our website the Friday before the hearing. But moving forward, and we've already started to do that, these notices will include the access information, which will also be available on our website a week before the hearing at minimum. I'm just saying that because we're developing techniques as we go, and we've learned how to include the Zoom dial-in information on the notices of hearing that go out to the applicant, and then go from there to the community board. Since this was expedited, the community board hasn't had time to meet on this. And so, but we did receive a letter of support from the community board one chair, who also expresses a clear understanding of the scope of the application and the site's history. So they are in support of it. We have one letter in support from a neighbor. So in terms of the findings, it is 27 feet from the nearest R district in which the use is permitted as of right. It is on the edge of the Port Morris IBZ district. The applicant demonstrated that this is indeed a section 1210 school, and that the other as of right locations they searched won't be ready in time for the immediate 2021 school year, which is what they're looking for. My main question is really because we actually saw an application for 411 Wales just recently. So this is a high school located at 411 Wales currently. So my question is, why is it having to move from that location? Is it because the incoming ninth graders sort of push it out over the maximum? And also, is it because they represented to the landlord of 411 Wales that we're leaving, and then the landlord immediately or subsequently rented it to another school, which is what we heard and decided just March 24th, we decided on an elementary school for that level. So I'm just trying to understand why this happened. Is it that the building wasn't completed in time that they were going to be moving into? They relinquished their other site, and then now they're stuck between the proverbial rock and hard place where they have nowhere to go. The other question is, were curb cuts and street trees installed as shown on Builder's Pavement Plan 04 dated December 4th, 2013? That was a requirement of the prior action on this site. The drawings give us bubbles, but I don't understand what the bubble changes are about. Is that work that's to be done, that was to be done for the Hecate School and never amended? In other words, did that school make these changes to the interior and just never amended the application? Or is that for this school? Because the approved drawings, the approved BSA drawings and the proposed have many differences on them that aren't bubbled. So I just don't understand what the bubbling is referring to. Maybe that was too complicated of a statement, but it's about the bubbling and what is it? DEP did sign off on the March 2020 remedial closure report that was submitted. We have comments from DOT issued on May 15th that need to be responded to. We have open, let's see, we have open noise and air quality, or maybe we want to have pending DOT approval of mobile source analysis. And Tracy's going to jump in because maybe I'm making a mess of this. And so I'm going to give it to Tracy before I make a mess. Please unmute yourself.
Hi, we actually received the DOT sign off this afternoon.
Wow.
And Yes, it was circulated very like within the last hour. So I expect to have the air quality noise sign off because the only pending item was the mobile source, and they just wanted to confirm that DOT was okay with it. So
Okay, so.
there's no more DOT issues. We'll just get usually there is a signature that they put on the document to finalize it. That will be the only open item for that. And then I'm waiting for the letter for air quality and noise.
Okay, so just need final air quality. Okay. Okay. Great, thank you. All right. So those are my comments going to Commissioner Shandal.
So I really did not have any additional comments on this. The only correction I want to make to, I think, something that was stated, the enrollment is for the period of 2020 to 2021. So it would be from September of this year.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I just want to make that clear. But I really did not have any other comments on this.
Okay. Okay. And Commissioner Otley Brown?
I have one question for the A finding, which is the site search finding. My question is, I wasn't clear what the search criteria is other than gleaning that from the description of the project. However, they do have a list of 10 sites, and they talk about the ways in which the 10 sites are not appropriate for them. And I was fine with the amount of sites that they actually reviewed and for the way in which they distinguish themselves from the sites. However, they just weren't clear as to what they were looking for. And for me, being that this is expedited, they could just clear this up in hearing.
Okay, great. Well, they actually, because even if we close this, they might have some kind of submission. I'm not sure. So they could just follow that up with a submission, even though we close it, because we don't close vote during
Right.
hearings. Okay, thank you. Okay, and Sheta?
Thank you, Chair. I have nothing further on this.
And Commissioner Shibeta, please unmute yourself.
I was satisfied with the application. I have nothing further to add.
Thanks.
Okay. So this concludes the public review session for May 19th, 2020, 2 p.m. We will now commence with the public hearing for May 19th, 2020, 2 p.m. Please call in when you hear your case. 2019-263BZ, 2122 Richmond Avenue, Staten Island, the office of Eric Palatnik. So the applicants for that case should be calling in only right now.
Whoever has that.
The office of Eric Palatnik. So the applicants for that case should be calling in only right now.
The host asked to be. Okay, Tony, hold on a second. There was just strange noises and I needed to mute everyone. Okay. Go ahead.
No, I called the case already.
Yeah, I did. I know. So I see.
Oh, Elise, you're there? Anybody else, Elise?
Yeah.
Zachary's there.
Zachary.
Andrew?
Yep. And
Is
should
that
be
it?
Tom.
And who?
Thomas. He's the architect.
So that's maybe the person with the 999 phone number.
We should have 2 traffic engineers and an architect.
Okay.
Hello?
Yes, Tom Laporte is on, the architect.
Could you spell your last name?
LAPORTA.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay. So do you need to swear in?
Yes.
Yeah, is everyone there?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, so raise your right hands. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before this board and to respond honestly to board member questions?
I do.
I do.
Okay,
I
fine.
do.
Proceed, Elise.
Okay, thank you, thank you. So firstly, I would like to talk about, I think the easiest thing to talk about, which is the D finding. I'd like to point out that across the street, within about 200 feet is a funeral home. And also next door, which is currently a residential property, that which will be, if you're looking at our property to the right of it, they're filing for a shopping mall. I believe that Thomas looked into it. I don't know if he found anything, but we can provide proof that a shopping mall will be directly adjacent to us. So we feel that this is, and the T-Mobile has been there for a really long time. So we feel that this is an appropriate spot for a Starbucks. And this Starbucks, I'd also like to point out, is only for a drive-through. It is not a sin, as a few Commissioner Chanda pointed out, and Shabeta. It will be a passerby type of use where people come get their coffee and leave. It's not a sit-down facility.
It's not, sorry?
There's a few outdoor seating spaces, but it is not meant for seating indoor. It's not an indoor facility. It's a drive-through only.
So can we have the floor plan, please, of the actual interiors?
Yes. Not a problem. We have that prepared. We just didn't want to give you pages and pages of plans, but that is something we can certainly add.
Oh, we don't want pages and pages. We want the floor plan.
Well, no, I know. I'm just saying that we will add that. And also another thing we can add is information. Shetta pointed out he wanted to know more about the runoff. So we have an engineer who is doing a detention center, and we will get that for Commissioner Shetta. And now I guess I would like to.
Sorry, before you go on, where is the funeral home?
It is it's on off of Rockland and Richmond. If you go on Google Maps even right now, that's easy, I think.
I see a house.
Across the street?
Across the street how far down? I mean, yeah.
It's like right down. It's like one lot and across the street.
So you're going to need to go through this finding very carefully. It says the character of the commercially zoned street frontage.
So it's also fronts Richmond, but on the opposite side of the street.
Okay, directly opposite, like where the bus stop is.
And Rockland. So it's like it's within 200 feet.
Okay, that's
on the radius diagram.
Okay, so
It's actually a temple.
But it's also, Eric told me actually today that he went to a funeral there. That's why I said that.
yeah, but temples have funerals.
Yeah.
But it's not a commercial property, and it's specifically that. So please, you're going to need to go back to that finding D, and you're going to need to do a site visit, or someone in your team has to do a site visit and take photographs of the frontage on both sides of the street within 500 feet and establish that either there's a permit out, which hopefully will happen, right, for a commercial building, or that there's already a commercial building to establish this.
And they're filing, as I said, a commercial building directly next door right now.
Right, but so you're going to need to show us proof of that, or proof that the structure already exists and it's commercial, if that's the finding, okay? Okay, go on.
Okay, so next I'd like to refer to Zach and Andrew from
Sorry,
Stony.
before you go on, if anyone is, the siren in the back is not Elise, then please mute yourself.
It is Elise.
Okay.
Some crazy things are happening on my street right now.
Okay, you can't mute the siren outside your window. So
But I will mute myself once I defer. First I'd like to talk about trash pickup on another site in Staten Island with Starbucks. We agreed to have trash on the inside, and we're gonna talk to Starbucks again about putting trash on the inside. We don't think that'll be a problem. So we can do that. And now I'm going to refer to Zach and Andrew, who are going to talk to you about all the layouts we looked at and why we chose that layout. And Thomas will have some input on that as well. Okay, I'll mute myself.
Thank you, Elise. Just for the record, my name is Zachary Chaplin from Stonefield Engineering and Design. I'm the civil site engineer for this project. So we had a chance to listen to your discussion earlier, and I do appreciate all the comments that came forth. I think this is one of those applications where you almost need to see 3 to 4 different layouts to really understand what might be the most ideal for this property. Each layout kind of has its own pros and cons. So what I can tell you is at the beginning of looking at this development, we probably put together between 4 to 5 different sketches of different types of layouts. And like I said before, each kind of has its own advantages and disadvantages. If you turn the building 90 degrees, as it was mentioned previously, for one, we would not meet the fire department requirement for the building distance to the property line. And 2, what it would do is you would have likely head-on parking right in front of the curb cut. So where cars would come in, you would have cars parked, and you could create a conflict like that as well. So that's obviously not ideal if you were to turn the building counterclockwise. One of the things we looked at first and foremost was, of course, the impact of the residences. So we feel that this layout provides the menu board in what we would believe to be the most ideal location, in that it's not facing outward towards the residences, it's not facing outwards towards the road, it's kind of facing outwards in the, say, the northerly direction, where there's kind of really not a lot there. So if you were to turn the building counterclockwise, it would be getting closer to the residential area. Now we do have the drive-through window closer to the residential area, but as it was stated, you know, there is no menu board or anything like that. It is just a person speaking to you. And of course, Starbucks, you know, the hours of operation, this isn't going to go all night. You know, it's just a day-to-day operation. And then in terms of the parking.
What are the hours? What are the hours?
I believe the hours are 5:30 to, is it 8 p.m. or 9 p.m.? Tom, do you know?
Elise, do you have that written down? I think it's 9 or 10 p.m.
5:30 to 9 or 10.
The application says 5 a.m. to 10 p.m. for store and for drive-through.
Yes, that's what we would request. It's a proposal though, so it's still in discussion. They're not open yet, so that is what we are requesting.
Okay, keep going, Mr. Chaplin.
Sure. So the other things we looked at, of course, just this is, you're not allowed to enter inside the building as a customer. So if this is really primarily geared toward a drive-through use. And what this layout does is it provides the maximum amount of queuing. We're able to have 11 cars queued for this drive-through. And we believe that, especially now with what's going on, you know, in the coronavirus, drive-throughs are only going to become more popular. And any other layout that we would look to propose here would likely result in a less of a parking queue. And again, we've done these layouts, and I think the other ones we looked at were closer to the 9 and 10 range, whereas this does provide us with 11 cars. The parking, as mentioned before, we do meet the requirement of the zoning resolution. One thing that I think is worth mentioning is these are really complementary uses. The T-Mobile, you know, isn't open in the mornings when Starbucks is, you know, typically busier. So the T-Mobile, you may have customers driving in midday, and the Starbucks, again, you know, they're going to get busier, you know, in the morning or later in the afternoon. So complementary uses, not meant for people to go inside. And again, there may be a couple months in the summer where the weather's nice, and that's kind of the idea of the outdoor seating there. In terms of the lighting, I think there was a comment from the commissioner just about the spillage in the property line and how that didn't seem accurate. That's because of the sound wall and the fact that it's 8 feet high. We model the lighting where that wall actually cuts off the lighting completely. So we have 0 spillage across the property line as a result of that wall that we're putting in.
Sorry, how does a sound wall cut off the lighting unless the lighting is located 8 feet above grade?
So the lighting is all downlit. These are LED downlit fixtures, and the wall, doesn't really matter what kind of wall it is, acts as a barrier for the lighting spillage.
What's the height of the pole of the or the location of the light?
So specifically, we have a wall-mounted light by the drive-through and a canopy light at 12 feet high, and we have a 13-foot high pole-mounted light. And you might say, okay, that's higher than the sound wall, but it doesn't exactly work like that. We have software where we model everything in to the heights, and because of the downlit nature and the way the lighting spillage occurs, the 8-foot high wall does fully cut off the lighting at the property line, and we can provide you with all of our calculation analyses to show this. And this is very common throughout the industry for us to do this.
May I add that I believe that also you don't have any lighting that's directly on that boundary, right? And that boundary is going to be a commercial property next door. I just would like to point that out. So the lighting, it's not like there's a light right on top of the wall, correct? It's further out.
No, there's no lighting proposed directly within that buffer area to the residential. The next thing I wanted to kind of talk about is the residential area in the buffer. This site, we believe, is an underutilized, parking lot for the most part. I know you mentioned that 11 cars were seen on Google. I'm personally seeing 6 just looking at it right now. I'm a T-Mobile customer. I never go to a T-Mobile store. I typically do all my purchases online, and I think that's generally the way that it's typically going. So it does.
Sorry to point out, but if we can have Tom, if we can unmute him, he does live in the area, and he noticed that people, or he pointed out to me, and maybe he should speak himself, about how people were using the bus stop. They were parking for the bus stop. So that could be why you see more cars.
Potentially.
But I want him to speak on that because he lives locally about parking.
Okay, I'm also going to unmute Commissioner Otley Brown and Commissioner Sheta, or they can unmute themselves. No, she can't. Okay. And Commissioner Sheta, who have questions which may be directed at the speakers. Okay. Commissioner Otley Brown, go ahead.
So in response to your question about the preferential layout and that through your studies, this is the best layout, that still doesn't address the issue of the awkward U-turn to get into the drive-through. And I also had another question as a follow-up about the size of your site, because you're talking about the inability to maneuver the building, but you just stated that nobody is going to be entering this building. So my question is, why does it have to be so large? And why do you have an entry in the front?
To answer your second question, it needs to be suitable for employees, for stocking, supplies, to actually make the coffee, etc. So there is a minimum size component in terms of just everything but the indoor seating. So normally when you see a Starbucks that gets developed, you're looking at typically 1,800 square feet. Sometimes they're a little bit larger. That 600 square feet that we're cutting out, that's typically where you see the indoor seating. The remainder of the Starbucks interior, you still need for all the other essential purposes. As to the curb cut, go ahead.
No, go on. I'm looking because I don't see a page that has the layout of the interior.
Yeah, we do apologize.
Interior drawing.
I have it.
Yeah, that would be helpful.
In terms of the curb cut, one of the things we wanted to do on this site, if you look at the existing condition, there are 2 curb cuts today, one of which is right on the intersection. So we really wanted to consolidate those curb cuts and push it back further away from the intersection. And now to your point about the awkward turn into the drive-through lane, there's actually about 17.5 feet from the curb to curb. So I know it looks tight on the plan, but a car is actually making 2 turns. It's turning into that area, it can situate perpendicular, and then it's making another turn. And we prepared auto turn exhibits, which shows that vehicles can make these turns fairly easily without even needing to go into the opposite lane of travel. I know it's a bit awkward, but like I said before, there's always going to be pros and cons to every layout. And we feel that given the fact that we have a shoulder lane on Richmond Ave for people to slow down, we're by the signal, consolidating access, the fact that cars can make this turn, customers are going to be familiar with this site. They're typically going to be regular customers going to this Starbucks once they find it's there. We find that the negative aspect outweighs some of the other negative aspects that may result from changing the layout completely.
So in order to convince me, because I have to say probably out of the board, I use drive-throughs probably the most. you would have to show me other drive-through layouts that are similar to this and show me photos of cars easily making the turn, because this is the first one that I've seen with such a sharp turn near the entrance.
Yeah, I
Tom,
think
And I want to add to that concept. So, Mr. Chaplin, you're speaking as if you're speaking to your client, right? And this is where your client says, so I bought the site and I want to put a Starbucks there. And you're the Starbucks designer, and make this work for me. Then you come to me and you show me 6 solutions, and I say, I don't like that one because of X. And I don't like that one because of Y. And I don't like that one because of Z. And you say, client, well, you know, you're going to have to make compromises here because the site's actually not the ideal site for this because there's an existing building on it and so on. We're not the client. We're an agency that can decide whether you should have this thing or not have this thing. We don't have to make any compromises if we don't think that it's a desirable use in the neighborhood. And right now, the layout doesn't look desirable. For one, the U-turn. I'm the last person who should be talking about driving abilities, but got me back in a car, you don't want to see because I wouldn't be able to make that in one turn, right? And who knows? And we don't know about the skill levels of every driver who comes to a Starbucks. But in addition to which, it's not okay not to have adequate buffering for of vegetation and sound and light and so on for the residents. The neighboring residents don't have any obligation to Starbucks to allow for this to happen. So we are trying to protect them, and there is inadequate buffering between them for a new site. We're not even talking about retrofitting an existing site. We're talking about a brand new building. The property owner has decided to add the second building to the site, which that property owner can do as of right, of course, but not for a drive-in. So if the owner wants to put up a Starbucks where you just drive your car in and walk in and you get a cup of coffee, be my guest, but that's not what's being asked.
can I just point out 2 things? One, in our next submission, we will go through AKRF's recommendations and show you how we are complying with each of those. And then also, Tom, I think there was a thing about FDNY access and why we chose that layout.
No, but sorry, Ms. Fullader, you're missing my point.
Yeah.
Sure. With respect to your client, there are all of these opposing factors at work. Fire department says this, Department of Sanitation says this, everybody says that.
Yeah.
When we look at the application and we say, not enough room on the lot, sound is too close to the neighbors, light is too close, you don't have vegetation, can't make the turn, even DOT made a comment, or let's say the council member made a comment about the turning radius and so on, right? You can't say the best of, the worst worlds or whatever. We don't have to accept that. And as you know, I think, we've had a few of these where we denied the application because there was no really viable. So
touch on a couple points.
we're not the client where we're looking for the least worst scenario.
Well, okay. Zach, do
Have you reviewed the turning radius of the cars and how it does work?
Sure, we looked at it and we're not persuaded.
Yeah, I guess.
Okay. Because all of Staten Island is driving vehicular traffic for the most part. There's no subways on Staten Island. Most of this is all vehicles. Staten Island actually has 5% of the population of New York City, but 20% of the registered vehicles. So that also should go into account when trying that drive-throughs are all over Staten Island and vehicles are almost always access to these sites. And in regard to the traffic study, if the car can make the turn, that's really what our argument is that it may not look desirable, but we're actually taking the curb cut further away from the intersection. We're eliminating the curb cut so there's not double ingress and egress at the corner of the light, and we're we're showing how we can make that turn.
What, can I see that? Because I'm looking at all of the pages, and the pages that show the cars already on the site and not negotiating the turn.
Oh, there is a turning radius one, I think.
Yes, we have added that to the last submission. We show the queuing, and then we have another document that just shows the actual turning at that curb cut into the drive-through. Is that correct, Zach?
Yeah, that's correct. And I just want to add a couple more points. One,
Wait, before you do that, let us find it, because
Yeah.
I believe that the last submission with the plans was in March.
March 12th. No,
March 12th.
no. Oh, no, that's driveway count. March 12th is only 2, doesn't have any drawings.
I did a March 9th, 2020. There's existing and proposed plan.
should be dated.
In the initial folder.
That's what I think, yeah.
Yeah, that's the one I'm looking at, and I didn't see it. I'm looking at proposed Starbucks with drive-through,
Yes.
and it's 16 pages.
Yeah, and it's stamped, received March 11th.
We sent this was an addition we sent in.
Not neat.
Yeah, I have March 11th. Received March 11th is the one that I'm looking at. I don't see the turning radius that shows the car turning onto it. If you could just tell me the page number.
I'm looking for the term.
The only one that we have from March 11th is for the trucks.
No, sorry. There is a submission. You don't see it as drawings. It was a letter that was sent by GLA Architecture on May 6th. Received May 6th.
Yeah, that we added an additional plan page.
Okay,
Yeah.
May 6th.
But
Yeah.
this is the one where I saw the U-turn, right? So on May 6th, and it's page 1 of 1 from Stonefield at the end of the letter. So it's basically page 4 of
Oh,
that.
it's the response letter?
Yes.
I have a drawing with like maneuvering plan in it, and it shows turning of vehicles.
Yes, it's 1 of 1 from March 6th. I mean, May 6th.
Yes,
May 6th.
I
Column
see it.
C14, I believe.
I see 4 out of page 6 shows the ability of the car to make a U-turn.
Right.
And I would assume it's the sharpest one, which is 180 degrees.
It's really not, it could go sharper. Like I said before, we have about 18 feet between the curb and the curb. So a car in theory could literally turn into the driveway, be perpendicular, and then make another turn. So it's not like it's just doing a full U.
But it really doesn't look like that if you look at your curves that you're showing, there is no perpendicular. It's a continuous curve.
I'm just saying, that's just the way this is shown. It could show it that way as well. It would not be as smooth when we run the software, but both ways of driving would work.
Right, but it's awkward. I got to tell you, it's awkward because the best way it would work would be if it was that continuous curve that you see. Once you make a commitment to go straight, once you make your right turn, you're going through the curb cut. If you are going head on into the site and then you're going to make the decision to make the right turn, you're not going to clear that island, that raised island. So you
Also,
really have to do it as a continuous curve.
We pushed back the island in our latest set where there's more striping in the event somebody missed it. But like I said, I think most customers would know exactly where they need to go, being regular customers, going on their commute every single day, where this, we're designing it for the 85th percentile, it would be the similar customers and understand what they need to do to get into the queue.
Right, and then if you look really closely, because I'm looking very closely at your curb cut with your in and your out, your curb is brushing up very closely to the halfway point where you have exit traffic. You see that?
Yeah.
No.
Which means that that's the possible track that a car can make. That's the outside of possible tracks that you can make to make that turn. And if I'm going fairly quickly and slowing down at the last minute, I'm going to take that widest track to make the turn. I'm just saying you're posing a problem, and the only way that you could convince me that this is going to work without cars backing up into outgoing traffic to make that turn, you have to show me where this exists in other drive-throughs, because most drive-throughs are arranged on a site so that you don't have to make a multitude of turns initially before you get in. They try and maximize it as one turn. You turn into the curb cut, you go straight in, and then you curve around a building. Even constricted sites.
Yeah, I could say that we've seen this configuration before and can provide you with documents that will be similar to this.
Yeah, I would like to have to see that and see photos of it, see cars getting onto it, because this looks a bit on the sharp side. It's definitely not preferable, and I could certainly see why the community board and the council person has reservations about this.
And I
And
would,
I would want,
I just want to add that if you do have actual sites, they need to be in New York so that our commissioners can actually try it out for themselves. Okay.
There's actually another Starbucks in Tottenville that has the exact same layout, and we can take photos of it for you.
Staten Island.
Yeah, in Staten Island, correct.
If you could provide the address, that'd be great.
Yeah, it's yeah, we can provide you the address. It's not what you're doing is you're driving it, you're off the street, you're making a right into the parking lot, and then making another immediate right to go in front of Starbucks to then make another left to go on to the drive-through. But it's the same queuing for the most part.
Oh.
And then also, I just also want to second what the chair said. This is a discretionary approval, so it's not as of right. So we're not stuck with an awkward situation that may be your best case scenario. We could say no and leave this kind of an awkward drive-through for where it's completely as of right and you don't have to have any kind of input from an agency.
Yeah, I think I just want to add, from an engineering standpoint, we feel very comfortable with this configuration. This did get unanimous approval from the community board. And like I said, in any drive-through layout, there's going to be, never going to be perfect. Rare that you have, especially in New York City, a perfect drive-through for whatever property you have. There's always going to be some nuances that are never ideal. And in this case, we think that although, like you said, it may be awkward, we think it's still safe and an effective way for cars to enter the drive-through, while also providing the most amount of queuing, a safe way for the parking area and other components of the site to work.
Mr. Chaplin, with all due respect,
I don't want to beat this down anymore, but there are many more things than the problematic with this site than the U-turn. Unless you satisfy all of them, I don't see my voting in favor of this application, and I want to echo Commissioner Otley-Brown's opinion on this and so on. You need to understand that it's not in the interest of Starbucks. It's in the interest of the neighborhood that we look when we look at these applications.
I also
I
want to.
want to say that I agree. I totally agree with Commissioner Otley-Brown on the maneuverability issue. I believe this maneuverability plan and this layout comes with an issue at the entrance, at the curb cut, for cars getting out of the site and cars getting into the site through the drive-through. This is number one. It comes with a very close drive-through roadway, close to the adjacent residential. If you look at the distance, there is no dimensional lines provided, but I did look at the width of the building on another drawing, and I'm looking at the distance between the curb to the property line. It's about 3 feet. You cannot have a curb for a drive-through which is 3 feet away from a property line. That's crazily close. It can't be like that.
So
I have a
think-
question, and that is with regards to the kind of vehicle that has been used for this analysis. Based on the drawings provided, it seems it's a standard sedan that has been used, so which may have a lower turning radius. Whereas, I think I'm not a Staten Island resident, but given that it's a more family-oriented area, there's likely to be more SUV types, larger vehicles. And the turning radius will require to be a lot more than that would be required for a Honda Accord.
Oh, there we have it. That's now I'll make 5 commissioners. I think you guys should go back to the drawing board on that maneuverability. They're not convinced by it. So I think you should pay closer attention to what the statements that were made.
Regarding the luminous spread, I just want to mention something. I heard that. I'm not sure which software you use, but I believe when you consider the sound barrier as light barrier, I'm not sure if the modeling in the software takes that. If you can tell me which software you use and how the sound barrier or any other fence is modeled, I could look this on internet and see how this is modeled in your software. But the light pole is up in the sky, and the sound barrier or whatever, even if you have a black plain solid steel plate between your property and the adjacent property, if the light is not propagating horizontally, it's not going to be blocked by that plate. It's not going to happen. If it's coming from outside, it's going to shed. So I'm not sure if the way you model this fence is just throw an option, check a box in your software and say, there is a barrier here, and that's how it understand it, and it interpret this like you don't have any light past this line or this fence. Or is there a more legit way to model that? If you can educate me on this, I appreciate it.
I just want to also point out again that there's no light that's going to be directly on the boundary, and the boundary will also be a commercial property that's likely going to be open as long as us. So
yes, there is. You got 3.4, 3.6, 3.5, and this is about 4 feet from the fence. And all of a sudden, right past the fence, 0. How is that?
I guess we will put in our writing and we'll try to make that clearer for you, but.
Right, no, it's more than writing, it's the studies. We need to see the actual studies. But I do have to say that this is a new site, right?
So there's no lighting actually there right now.
No. It's new construction. And when we talk about new construction, sessions for, lights that are already installed or anything like that. The lights are not installed, the building's not built, nothing is done. There should be no light spread over the adjacent property. And by the way, what if the shopping center doesn't get built? It's a residential site. So
You're going in and out.
what?
You're going in and out.
You're bouncing in and out, Marjorie. You're chopping up when you're speaking, so she couldn't hear clearly.
I don't know what to say. Okay, how about now? Any better?
Slightly.
Oh,
Yes.
so bad. Maybe I turn off this.
But I think the message is clear, Ms. Voltaire.
Right.
I want to point out that there's site today that are not shielded. So I understand it's a new construction and we're looking at what's going there, but under the existing condition, there's got to be much more spillage than what we would propose.
Under the exit, but you're missing the point, and this
No, I
is,
know, I mentioned that. It's about what we're proposing, and I understand.
please don't use excuses about others and all of this stuff. We're looking at this project, new construction.
I just wanna give them credit for the way they laid out the location of the light pole. That was one of the probably the most careful locating of the light poles. I love it. But like flipping through the lighting diagram or the luminous spread, I saw that 3.6 drop to 0 doesn't make sense. You know what? As an engineer, the response to this is not because of the software. You explain it to us. And what you explained is not convincing. So hopefully next hearing, we will have more convincing explanation for that.
Okay, so I'd like to, you hear me? It's weird.
Yes.
Tom, do you want to talk about what you talked about with AKRF?
For the sound?
Yes.
From the sound, he wasn't able to make the call. When I spoke to him shortly before, and the reason that I believe your calculations were not matching up with the charts were because when I spoke to him, if you use the standard calculation of 3 dBA is a reduction when you double the distance, that's not how the manufacturer equation works. It's actually a slight higher difference, and that's how they had to estimate the sound when it hits the property line. So
I didn't consider 3 reduction. I understand that the white paper says it's 6 when you double the distance. I got this clear. I haven't used any rule for doubling the distance as a reduction amount. But what I did is I took the only 3 points in the white paper that were provided. 1 foot, it's 90, 17 feet, it's this, at this distance is this. And I plotted the 3 points, starting at 1 feet and going to 66 feet or so. And then I extrapolated between these 3 points using an exponential extrapolation function. And it gave me the intensity at the same exact distances that are provided on page 2 on the chart at the top of the page. And the values I got is 10 dBs higher than what's in the chart.
Commissioner,
did you use the manufacturer's values from their documentation?
Yes, the same exact values
not
in
from
the
our
document.
report, not from our report, from the actual manufacturer.
Yes, from the manufacturer, white paper. I can give you the 3 numbers right now, but
since we
they
don't
are
have
there.
AKRF on the phone, can we just have them provide a letter explaining how they did the calculations? Because I don't think we can speak in depth about calculations. I just want you to know that he spoke to AKRF. They had an explanation of how they did their calculations, and they heard your comments, and they can provide a letter explaining how that went.
Good.
Because I don't think that we can speak in depth about work that didn't
That's fair. Is that okay, Commissioner Shaita?
Yeah, I'm fine with that. Explain to me, how did you get to the values on the chart at the top of page 2?
Yes. With respect to that white paper that provides us with other data, right?
The only source of data I have and they provided is the white paper. And I'm okay with it. I'm not saying anything about the contents of that white paper. All what I'm saying is when I took the data from the white paper and I ran the numbers, I did the math, I got 10 dBs higher than the chart, which means that it's either I'm wrong and I'm okay to accept that if they prove it to me, or
understood. I just want you to know
wrong.
we heard the comment, and AKRF is a specialist, and I'm sure they can address it in a way where you can understand it in the cover letter. So
we'll have them provide that because the white paper wasn't provided part of our submission. I just got it through email now from the engineer. He didn't provide that part of it because he didn't think that would come up. But we didn't provide the white paper from the engineering department of HME, the manufacturer.
I believe I got it, and the chair got it too.
Sorry, we have it in our submission. We're relying on that white paper. It was submitted early on in the story. AKRF is actually referring to it in their own report, and it's attached to what we have. So
okay, so then we need them. We'll have them either on the call next time, or we'll definitely have them write a letter of the response because he understood exactly where the calculation difference was. But I don't think that I don't want to waste your time going over something that we can speak to better on the next round.
Okay.
Fair enough.
Okay.
And then also we will address in the next submission how we meet all of AKRF's findings. After we show about the sound, we'll show about how this site works with that study, and then we'll also look into maybe providing more landscaping, et cetera, see what we can do on that.
Okay, so I'm going to open this up to the public, and then we can go over what it is.
Before we do so, regarding the public, I want to get which section in the zoning resolution indicates that whether you have outdoor seating or you do not, it's the same parking.
There is nothing in the zoning resolution that deals with outdoor seating, to my knowledge. It's only based on square footage of an establishment. It's, one space per 300 square feet or something like that.
That's what I looked at in the zoning resolution. I couldn't find any wording regarding the outdoor seating.
There is.
Yeah, you
But
won't, because
I
that's not how
heard it and
zoning
I wanted
works.
to.
And also just want to say that the funeral home across the street is called Menorah Chapels. It is a funeral home. It's a chapel. Okay, but I'll clarify that in my writing.
So if we got 6 spots for the outdoor seating and they are providing 6 parking spots, how come if there's anybody is picking coffee from inside the store, let's say we have 3 or 4 people inside the store, where are they gonna park?
You can't go in the store.
You cannot?
Yes.
You cannot enter the store. Only employees can enter the store.
Okay, so it's either drive-through or just outdoor seating. There is nothing inside.
There's a pickup
Correct.
window.
I got
So
it, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay,
Right. That's because you didn't, normally we get an interior, a floor plan of the interior, and we didn't. That's why there's a confusion. I'm going to invite the public to speak now, please. And let's hold off on further comments till we get the public. So inviting the public, Tony, can you read the case?
So we're discussing right now is 2019-263BZ, 2122 Richmond Avenue, Staten Island, proposed Starbucks. So the number is 646-558-8656. Zoom meeting ID number is 929-4808-0954 pound.
And I'm admitting someone who was identified as Sal and someone who was identified as Alejandra Triana. I hope they're calling in about the Starbucks. And I know Commissioner Otley Brown's hand is up, so while they sort of connect, well, let's see, maybe they're connecting.
This is Sal Genovese. I'm the architect for the 1498 Clover Road. If you like, I can sign out for now.
Yes, please.
Waiting.
Okay.
And Ms. Triana, can you hear us?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, it's Alejandro. Okay, sorry. So are you calling about the Starbucks site?
No, I was actually on the for the school.
Please hang up.
Okay, please hang up.
You
Will
should
do.
not be on this call. Please hang up and don't call back in until we announce that case. Thank you. Okay, so I don't think we'll allow for people to call in case they're still interested. 646-558-8656. This is the call for the Starbucks on
Richmond Avenue.
Richmond Avenue. 646-558-8656. Meeting ID 929-4804.
4808.
Oh, sorry, 4808. Thank you, Tony. 0954. And while we're waiting to see if anyone calls in, I'd like to recognize Commissioner Otley Brown, who's had her hand up so patiently.
Yes, I was looking at the Google view of the Starbucks at 106 Page Avenue, just in case that was the one that was being compared in terms of making that right turn coming off of the street. And it is a totally different situation if that's what you were considering as the applicant putting forth as an example, because first of all, the curb cut goes across a very wide sidewalk of about at least 10 feet wide. And then it also, you could go straight on another 18 to 20 feet before you first make your right turn. So it is not nearly as sharp a turn as the turn that's conceptualized at this project site.
Okay. All right. So we've given time for people to call in. I don't know if there are any more comments from the applicant group, except to say that you've heard our extreme concerns about this project, and that rather than argue with us about it, you should address those concerns. And I would really recommend that you more than address the concerns with arguments, but with a redesign, because I don't see, no matter what you do, adequate buffering between the residential. So that's the first, and of course that U-turn. And you may need to reduce the size of the building in order to accommodate this if you want to try to do this, or come up with some other ideas. Why does it all have to be in one building, for example? How about 2 buildings? How about a building that's closer to the property line? How about? So yeah, take all this under consideration. So then I would like to move on, but I want to give us a 10-minute break because we should be stopping for a pause of 10 minutes.
Ms. Folder has her hand up. I don't know if you want to.
Go ahead, Elise.
I heard all your comments, but do you want me to go through all the things we're providing, or do you think that?
I think in the interest of time, if you could just review session and the hearing, there are a lot of issues.
No problem.
We have a problem with the application, right? And so I'm thinking that you need the minimum of 6 to submit something in order to be really responsive. So that's kind of what I'm going to assume.
Okay.
Yeah, I see Tracy's hand up. So Tracy, go ahead.
Tracy?
Hi, would you like us to pause then all the DOT review? I mean, it was already on pause, but like officially until after the next hearing?
No, because they're going to argue that the U-turn is perfect. And I want to hear from DOT what they think about that U-turn.
That's a great
Okay.
point, Madam Chair. I was just going to recommend the exact same thing. If there's any doubt about the analyses we've prepared and the types of studies we've done, the DOT will be your level of security here.
Maybe. So it's not DOT's level of security. I want them to review that, but I do not want you to assume that the U-turn is the solution, because you've heard all the commissioners say no, right? So I don't know how to say it any other way. Do not pursue that idea as the solution.
Understood. One other point I want to add on to the record, just because I don't think it's been mentioned yet, is that the analysis that we prepared showing the standard passenger vehicle, and I understand we need to show a larger vehicle making this turn, but we're showing it make a turn in from the shoulder. So it's not as if it's going 35 miles an hour on Richmond Avenue. There is a shoulder provided for that maneuver to slow down.
You're making arguments we'd already told you, and when you said that it's a standard passenger vehicle and not an SUV, you got one more commissioner saying this is a no-go right there, right? So please don't do any more verbal arguments. Give us visual solutions that respond to our very, very long period of comments, very detailed, okay? I appreciate the entire team calling in, and we'll assume 6 months more for submission. So we're going to take a 10-minute break, back at 4:25.
So I just close off my video or what? Oh.
No, Kurt's going to put some kind of a screen sharing thing up.
Oh, okay, because I don't want to lose you. And you keep, Madam Chair, you keep bouncing in and out. Like,
I don't know what to do because I
think if you stay closer near the mic or something, maybe, I don't know.
Can you hear me better when I'm closer like this?
Yeah, it's a little more clearer.
That's much better, Marjorie, yes.
Yeah.
No, because I already turned off everything else that's relying on the internet. I can try one other internet source. I'll try that while we're
Okay.
break.
Stop video, is that what I do? I have to wait for Kurt, but I can't start my video. There we go. Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Okay, well, I didn't change anything. My other source is still charging, so I don't know.
you sound much better now.
Okay, don't know what it would be.
What else?
It may have been background noise from other microphones since a lot of people were unmuted.
Oh.
Oh, feedback or something? Oh, that's true.
Oh, okay, so I can't allow that collective unmute. People have to raise their hands. Okay.
Well, it's tough though. Like you have 4 or 5 applicants and then you have the commissioners. How do you do that?
One at a time, they'll have to raise their hands again. That was an experiment. I won't do that again.
Excuse me. Thank you. Excuse me. Wait, hand sanitizer.
Okay, who do we have? Is everyone? Let's see. Show the grid. That is the grid. Ron Rosati's in the waiting room. Okay, I think we have all the commissioners back. So Commissioner Shabeta, come sit back down. Okay. All right, let's get started.
I feel like I'm back in class.
Okay, we're back on the calendar for May 19th, back in the record, I'm sorry. May 19th, 2020, 2 p.m. session. The next item is 2019-266BZ, 1498 Clove Road, Staten Island, the office of Steve Simicich.
Is that Ron also?
That's
Yeah.
Ron, yeah.
We also,
Remember, there was somebody else who called in and hung up. You think he was the architect or somebody?
I don't know, but Andrew Valari is here.
Oh, is he he's again with the traffic? I don't know, maybe.
Okay. I don't see him. Where is he? Ron Rosati. I'm going to unmute him. If you can, Mr. Rosati, if you can hear us, please
Yes.
state your name. Okay.
Hi, Ron Rosati, representing the applicant. Good afternoon, Commissioners, Madam Chair.
Before you start, is Andrew Valari working on this with you?
No.
Okay. So I'm going to, Mr. Valari, please hang up. Thank you. Okay, he did. Great. All right then, please proceed, Tony.
Okay. So raise your, you'll be sworn in. So do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before this board and to respond honestly to board member questions?
Yes.
Okay.
As I said, good afternoon, commissioners. Sal Genovese, the architect, will also be joining. I told him to call in. I heard your comments.
Just 1 second, because he's joining, so we could swear him in too.
Okay.
Is he on? No, he's connected.
He's connecting to audio right now. Oh,
Do you have a YouTube or something on, Sal?
No, I just shut off.
somebody has a feedback of something, so please.
Not me.
Okay.
YouTube is off. Everything should be off.
That's weird. What is that?
I'm going to mute both of you for a second to see if that's the source. I don't know. So yeah, it could be them, one of them. Okay, so swear them in and then we'll keep them muted until they speak, okay?
Okay, Mr. Genovese, I'm gonna swear you in. Do you affirm, raise your right hand? Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your, nothing but the truth in your testimony before this board? And to
Yes.
respond honestly, wait, let I finish.
Oh, sorry.
Respond honestly to board member questions.
Yes, I do.
Okay, thank you. Proceed. Ron, go ahead.
Good afternoon, commissioners. As I said, I heard your comments on the review session earlier. I'd just like to go through them one by one. Regarding the lot width and lot area sections 2335, we do comply with that and we'll add that to our statement. Regarding the calculations needed under section 25-64, we will look into that and get you those calculations to confirm that we comply with that. We'll add landscaping calculations to the landscaping plan. We'll look into compatibility with neighborhood character in relation to parking, open space, height, front yard, side yard, rear yard, percentage of landscaping and pavement, all of those. We apologize that you are correct regarding section 25.331. There is no waiver for community facility parking in lower density growth management areas. But we do provide parking. We have 5 required community facility parking spaces and 2 required residential parking spaces, which equals 7 required spaces. And we provide 13. So we do have an additional 6 spaces on the site. We will provide the DOB approved drawings. We can move the handicapped parking space closer to the handicapped ramp. We'll add the missing steps that are on the site plan. We could easily add that to the site plan. Regarding the cellar, it is for storage for the residential use. That's why it has a bathroom in it, which is allowed in a cellar for residential use.
All right. I just have to stop you right there. A 3-piece bathroom on the bottom side, underneath an entire floor of medical. Sorry, that's for storage. How's that work?
Well, we're not allowed to use the cellar space for community facility space because it would generate parking. So it is residential storage space for the residential use above. And Sal can speak to it.
Why do a bunch of boxes need a 3-piece bathroom?
Well, it's for the residential. If the residences go down there and they want to use a bathroom, they're allowed, as per code, and the architect to speak to that, you're allowed to have a bathroom in a cellar.
Yes, and we also have laundry facilities too, so that's why we have the bathroom, just took advantage of the space.
Sorry. You're doing the laundry and you're bringing boxes down and you need to take a bath.
Well, we're allowed a 3-piece bath. I could have put a powder room, but why not have the 3-piece while doing the work there?
My question is, what's the cellar really being used for? Why is there a bath? I'm recognizing Commissioner Shanda.
I don't, who will be using the laundry room in the cellar?
This would be for the resident portion above. It's like a duplex apartment with the, at this moment, with the residential component for the.
But it is not a duplex apartment.
No.
Right, but the proposed plan will have only 1 residential unit on the 2nd floor. And as per your plan, the 2nd floor has a laundry facility.
Right, we put additional in the basement because it's just prudent for value to have the basement finished out with a bathroom in the next floor.
No.
No?
No, I mean, first of all, you cannot have a residential use below a community facility use. So that's rule number one. Even for, if it's only storage, that's different story. But if you're going to provide bathroom and other things, it doesn't make sense. Because if you're going to go there only to store objects, you don't need to use the bathroom. And if you have a laundry room on the second floor, why do you need to provide another laundry space in the cellar?
Well,
So
it's permitted by code, so I just chose
a
to.
lot of things are permitted by code, but that doesn't mean it makes it right. In this case, given the operation, given the nature of the operation, I'm sorry, given the nature of the operation here, you cannot have residential use below a community facility use,
And in addition.
other than storage.
Yes,
in
I have storage.
No, sir, sorry.
Okay,
In the Department of Not Born Yesterday,
right.
we know that the community facility uses, we see it all the time. They ask to be located on the first floor. They insist, they swear to God that they're not, or to whatever higher power, that they're not going to continue their use in the cellar. And then lo and behold, they do. Isn't that convenient that there's both a full 3-piece bathroom that might be convenient for nursing, for hospital staff to use or whatever? Or maybe it becomes residential occupancy because there are actually windows on this level. Sorry, we can't have that on our drawings. You take that off the drawings, and if you want to make an argument with DOB or something, that's a different thing. But you would have to come back here. We're not
If
persuaded.
the board wants it off, that's one thing. I don't have to make an argument with DOB because they permitted it. But if you are asking me to take it off because you feel it's being designed in a range for something different, then I will do so.
Well, commissioners, can I speak for a second? We do have additional parking on site, so we could state that cellar space is for some community facility use.
No, you can't. No, because the community facility, we would then know that your community facility is far larger than 1,500 square feet, right?
Well, we're asking to go larger than 1,500 square feet. That's where we're at.
Far larger, not 600 and something square feet, but more like 2,000 and I don't know what square feet.
Well, if it's just access to a bathroom, I understand what you're saying.
What are you
trying to come up with a solution?
No, trying to come up with the answer to our actual question. Why is there a 3-piece bathroom in the cellar and a full laundry if you only have one residential unit above with its own laundry, its own 3-piece bathroom? What's actually going on? Please give us an honest answer, since, as I said, none of us were born yet.
Standard practice in every house or whatever it is I design, I put an extra bathroom in the basement. Now,
Okay, so I think we found the solution, and that's removing the bathroom in the basement, moving the 3-piece bathroom in the basement.
right, and that's it. And if the board feels I should take it out, I mean, you leave me no choice.
Yes.
But it was approved by DOB, so it's compliance with the law, just the board's feelings.
I mean, I'm looking at the existing plan, and in the existing plan, it does, there is a residential use on the ground floor, which has a living room and a study room with a powder room and an access to the basement where I guess the 3-piece bathroom is there, which makes perfect sense. We do see residential buildings with ground floor and a cellar floor, which is used for entertainment but not for sleeping purposes, but for entertainment and recreational activities. And you have a 3-piece bathroom there. But what you're proposing is not a residential use on the first floor. You're proposing to retain only one residential use, and that is on the second floor. First floor will be entirely, so the access to the cellar from the residential floor on the second floor is rather circuitous and not necessary when the laundry is being provided on the second floor also.
Okay.
Right.
Good, I understand.
Okay, so we'll look into removing those. Back to the comments and review
By the
section.
way, I have another question. Is it already installed? Yes.
I don't know, is it?
Why don't you know? You're not the architect of.
I am, I haven't been there, so I don't know if it was installed yet.
So you're not hired for construction observation?
No, I'm not.
You're just the architect of record, but you don't do construction observation.
I
All right,
don't do special inspections or construction. It's not part of my contract.
Okay,
It's a third party.
okay. So we need photographs of the cellar. And yeah, because I suspect it's already there. So provide us photographs of the cellar.
Yes.
Now that we mentioned that, I would like our compliance officer, is Ted on the line? I don't know if he's on the line. Our compliance officer, if he could, or Commissioner Shabeta, if it's possible, I don't know, to, maybe we don't do this right away because I understand the situation, but to inspect the cellar. Okay, so both photographs and eventually an inspection of the cellar. Okay, go ahead.
If they could be expecting me there, that'd be great.
Yeah. So I just don't know when we'll be able to enter any kind of places. I don't want to put Ted at any kind of risk, and they're probably, I don't know whether they're seeing patients now. I don't know what's going on.
They are seeing patients now.
I can reach out to the owner to see and then get back to the board and schedule some time, whatever works for the owner and Commissioner Scabetta to access the site.
Okay, it would be our compliance officer, Ted
Ricketts.
Ricketts, sorry. I almost said wrong.
Okay. We will show the sign on the plan and the elevations. We'll add that to the plan and the elevations. We will provide a lumen plan for the lighting. The fence type is an opaque vinyl fence. We'll add that note to the plan. Regarding medical trash storage, it will be stored indoors on the first floor. We'll delineate where that will be stored on the first floor. And I will check with the doctor as to the pickup hours for that waste. We'll get that information to you. Regarding closing off the parking lot after hours, there is parking there for the residential use also, Commissioner Shanda. So I don't know how.
They have a key.
I mean,
Parking, right? One resident, 2 cars.
there's 2 cars, correct, required for the residents. I mean, a key to a gate, that would mean the person would have to possibly stop in the middle of Clove Road or block the sidewalk. I'm just thinking, I don't know how that would really function. And the architect did mention that the parking lot isn't, it's wide open. I mean, it is visible. We didn't expect anyone to try to sneak in that area and have any parties or cause any noise. It's you know, at the side of the building for the most part, not to the rear. But if you come, I mean, I don't know, Commissioner Chanda, if you have any ideas of how we could secure that for that, even though there is a residence parking mechanism.
Go ahead.
I do not want to see any vehicular backing up on Clove Road. Clove Road is a busy road, so you definitely would not want a car to be waiting and somebody to getting off, or even those automated things, because this would have to be a very big gate to close that off. So I was just kind of suggesting that as a recommendation as to if it's an issue and if there are ways to address it. If you don't think it's going to be an issue, I'm not going to make a big deal about it. I just want us to make sure that it does not result in a nuisance, which will affect the residential uses abutting the property. That's really what I was trying to get at.
Understood.
I think the other issue is whether that parking lot is being used by any other users at night. If there's other commercial users that might spill over onto this, I suppose that's an issue.
There's only one other commercial use in that immediate block. It's a small supermarket, which has its own parking lot. The other adjacent uses are residential with their own curb cuts and driveways. So I don't foresee, it's not a commercial area where there's you know, a need for off-street parking. So I don't foresee anyone parking in that lot. So I don't see that as an issue.
Continue.
Okay, and as I mentioned before, we'll look into our site conditions such as lot coverage, height, yards, percentage of landscaping and pavement compared to the neighborhood conditions. And if Mr. Ruffin can send me that that analysis that was done for the Highland Boulevard project. That would be great, so I could see how that was done. And I believe those were the comments I heard today at review session.
Okay, so with respect to that, if you could also send an email to Mr. Ruffin so that the two of you are communicating about this, because he has to locate that information, which is specifically the studies that were done.
Yes.
Similar kind of a case, much bigger site, but okay. Okay, I'm just wondering though, if there is spillover parking, so that's something that should be observed, you know, I don't know, Commissioner Shabeta, if you live anywhere near this, or if you know, on your drive-abouts, if you did a pass by like after hours to see if there's a lot of cars parked in it, that means that spillover. But I see that if you wanted to close off this lot, it's actually easy to do because the property line is set back far from the street. So if you had a gate, you could pull the car in and then have a fence after that point. So I actually don't see that as really being problematic if it was decided that it needed to be closed off. Okay.
I'll take a look again and I'll do it at the evening. My only concern is that is a very busy street that it's fronting on. And that has access to the highway. It is always active, and I'd be concerned that you create a backup in traffic. But
No, what I'm talking about is this is only for the two residents to get in, right, after hours. The way that it's shown on the site plan, there's a big front yard setback that's deep. I'm not sure if I know how deep, but it's deep, 15 feet right now, which is long, you know, more or less longer than a car. You could make it a full 18 feet and then the car would stop there and then get out and open the gate. You could move the gate back a little bit of the property line. In fact, that would work better because it would attach to the corner of the building. And since the handicap lot space then is going to be relocated to a more practical place for the ramp, you're not going to be losing a parking space.
Okay.
If it turns out to be necessary. But there was another point that you made about this very busy lot now with only a portion of this, with 600 and something square feet less being utilized for medical purposes. So as you know, on this site visit, and I would like the applicant to verify, I'd like to know whether it's already been built out as a medical office. It wouldn't be the first.
Square feet? No, it is not.
I'm sure it's not.
No, well, you could see it. It's not.
How can I?
We'll take photos. We'll submit photos.
We'll submit photos.
Okay. So how do you know it's not?
Because I verified this with the owner and contractor. It's not built out. We're waiting for the BSA findings.
Okay.
What are you saying that it's currently used as then?
It's a part of the apartment up above. It's a living space in the apartment up above. And we specifically did not finish the place out because if the board deems that it wants photos or a site inspection, it's honestly there. That's the space.
So I don't know.
It looked like this had a commercial use on it. You're saying there's no commercial use at this right now?
Not for the portion that we're asking for.
No, let's start again.
I think the plan does show the existing medical use in the front.
Right.
And the rear portion, as per the existing approved plan and build condition, as the applicant is saying, shows a living unit.
I'm not talking about the plan. I'm talking about real life. So I know what it says on the drawings. I'm wondering about real life. So Commissioner Shabeta observed this was a very busy site. And so I'm trying to understand how much busier it's going to get with an additional 600 something square feet, which represents an additional 3 exam rooms and an additional doctor's office. So then the question was, how is it being used now? And we're told it's being used as part of the upstairs residence.
Yes.
Then my question is, you have a tenant who has more space and then you're going to take the space away from the tenant?
Yes.
How's that work?
It'll work out. The tenant has enough space on the,
No.
floor.
Stop
Is
talking.
is the owner here?
No.
No. Next time, please have the owner come so we can understand what's really going on. Because yeah, the tenant has enough space and can live with less space. The tenant has a lease. And the lease says you get this many square feet. And all of a sudden they get this many square feet. I don't get that.
Well, it's not rented yet.
So then it's not being used for residential. So this is the thing. I feel like nobody knows the answer.
It's clear, it's a vacant space. Because of COVID, the space is just about finished out. No tenants have been occupying the space.
So there's no resident upstairs on the top floor.
No one is living there at the moment, no. Has not been rented yet.
Okay, all right. Okay, we need to have the owner participate in this.
There's too many contradictory statements going on here. It's just.
And you're telling us you haven't been to the site, so you're relying on other people telling you what the situation is, but you're sure it's not occupied, but you don't know whether there's a bathroom in the cellar, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We need the owner and we need an inspection and we need photographs of the current conditions on the site.
Fine.
And on the interior, okay? And
Yes, we'll get that to you.
it's easy to do a site visit because it's empty in terms of the COVID situation, okay? Okay, anything else? All right, so we did have people in the waiting room, but I think they must have been for something else.
One was for the school before.
Okay, no, but I mean, we had people in the waiting room just a couple of seconds ago and then they.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So this is item number 2019-266BZ, 1498 Clove Road, Staten Island. If you want to speak on that case, please call in. Number is 646-558-8656. ID number is 929-4808-0954.
Okay, so while we're waiting, because there's a time delay of 30 seconds on this, ask Mr. Rizzotti how much time he needs on this.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think a month would suffice. I'm just not clear on continued hearings, as I know you're not giving dates. So how does that work?
So I get an idea from you about how much time you need to respond. And then based on that, we look for space on the calendar. And then in the next few days, we release the revised calendar. And then your project manager will let you know, or you can get in touch with the project manager, should be both directions, for when the revised date is. We post the revised calendar on our website. So you should be able to see it after, let's say by the end of the week, you'll see what the new dates are.
Okay. If we could submit late June, I think that would work for us.
Okay.
Is there a specific date that you're going to give us, or are we just?
No. We can't figure. It's too many things to do at once while we're doing these hearings. So in other words, you've just said you want to submit late June. We'll see whether there's an appropriate hearing available with that submission date.
Okay, thank you.
July or August. Yeah.
Okay. So I don't see anyone waiting in the waiting room. So unless any commissioners have anything they want to add, please indicate with your hand up. Okay. All right. Thank you very much for calling in. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Okay, do I call it? Okay. Next case is 2020-27BZ, 403 Concord Avenue, the Bronx. Who's on this case, Frank or Amanda, somebody, I don't know. Jolene, you know what project manager's on this?
Lobel, Lobel.
No, but is it Richard or is it somebody else?
Thought it was Richard.
Oh, it's Fay Ann. She's coming in.
Oh, okay. Oh, thank you, Jella. Jella emailed me.
Okay, state your name, Fay Ann, when you can.
Sorry. Fan Baton from Sheldon Lobel PC for the applicant. We're actually waiting for, Richard should be joining as well, and we have an applicant team of at least 2 or 3 other people. I don't know.
So David Umansky is yours?
Yes, Umansky, yes.
And then Civic Builders?
Correct. And then there's Richard.
And Jason Chimura?
Yes, the architect.
And there's one more person.
AKR, anyone from AKR, at least 2 or 3 other people. I don't know.
So David, you want
Matthew Carmody is with you
Yes.
also? Okay. He's connecting to audio. Give him a second and then we can swear everyone in.
Okay, so I'm looking for. Okay.
Okay, Mr. Umansky, can you please unmute yourself? You have to swear. Okay.
Please turn off your YouTube. So David, you want
Matthew Carmody is with you also? Okay. Turn off your YouTube. Give him a second and then everyone turn their YouTubes off.
Okay, everybody ready?
Now we have, and so all the people who represent the applicants, please unmute yourselves because we need to hear you say aye to being sworn in. Okay.
Mr. Kamadi? Thank you. Okay, everybody, I'm done? Okay. Okay, raise your right hands.
Oh, sorry, one second. Is Noah Bernstein with you?
Yes.
Oh, okay, one more. Okay.
We brought everybody.
I see. Okay, and
Mr. Bernstein, unmute yourself and turn off your YouTube.
there you go.
Hello?
Someone has their YouTube.
Hi, sorry, I'm a few steps behind. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, ready, everyone? Raise your right hands. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before this board and to respond honestly to board member questions?
Yes.
I do. I do.
Okay.
Just because there's so many callers, I would like to have either Fay Ann or Richard organize them, only one speaker at a time. And I'm going to mute everyone. So you're going to tell me who you would like to have speak and that person speaks, okay? Because we have even transmission trouble when everyone tries to speak at once, not to mention the fact that we can't understand what's going on, okay? Okay, so go ahead.
Excellent,
Richard.
Chair. Thank you. Commissioners, Richard Lobel of Sheldon Lobel, thank you for hearing us today on 403 Concord Avenue. This is a 7319 special permit. We understand the lateness of the hour. We first wanted to tell the board that we are extremely appreciative of the expedited hearing granted to this matter. While we understand that schools are entitled to such hearings, we needed to say that the board and its staff have just been unbelievable with regards to this critical educational institution for 300 kids. And so we remain deeply appreciative and thank you, from the bottom of our heart. This is a very meaningful application.
And we agree that the staff is unbelievable, so thank you.
Okay, I'm glad. So despite the large number of the applicant team that we have, we understand that the comments are relatively tight as far as the application is concerned. So I think I would just start by saying that this is a subject of a prior application that was before the board as a 7319 in 2013 for Haketi Community School. This was a charter school which operated at the site from its conversion in 2015 and will be leaving the site in 2020. So with regards to the board's comment, in order to target what was addressed at the executive session, I would just probably have Ellen from Civic Builders begin the conversation. She will discuss the fact that American Dream School is now no longer at 411 Wales and is coming to this location. And she can also briefly discuss, I know that Commissioner Otley Brown requested the search criteria upon which the A finding was based, that what we looked at for other schools. And we did submit a letter to the board, which talked about, the substance of it was that none of these schools could be ready quickly enough. And as Ellen will tell you, we were placed in a position, particularly American Dream School, where they were seeking to move into another school, and due to the fact that a contractor went out of business, would be unable to locate in that school on Girard Avenue. So this opportunity presented itself. It actually makes quite a nice fit. After Ellen speaks, I think that the architect would talk briefly about the plan materials. And I know that there had been some questions regarding the builder's pavement plan and some bubbled areas on the proposed plans, and we can discuss those. And finally, I think the environmental consultants, Noah and Matt, may not even need to talk. I know Tracy has gotten some recent information regarding sign-offs from DEP and DOT, and we can address those as well. So with that, Chair, unless there's anything else directed at me, I'd be happy to have Ellen discuss those items.
Ms. McBurney, before you speak, I'd like to recognize Commissioner Otley Brown, who has her hand up. I'm unmuting her just in case.
Yes, I just wanted to say that my question could be fairly simply answered. It's just give me a summary of what it was that you presented to the realtor who was helping you with the search. What were you looking for?
Okay, great. Okay, and state your name, please.
Great. Hello, everyone. I'm Ellen McBurney, representing Civic Builders, a nonprofit developer for public charter schools. And echoing Richard's statements, thank you so much for your expedited review of our application. So first, addressing the question regarding why American Dream School has to move at this point in time. So American Dream School was developing a permanent site for their high school at 700 Girard Avenue. Late in 2019, that school learned that their contractor went bankrupt. And so their permanent site would be delayed. They had only signed on for 1 year in the 411 Wales space. And another school had already signed on for the upcoming school year for the space. As such, there is no room for American Dream School to be there. They're already enrolled. There are about 300 students. And so they were really in a tough position come the end of last year and early this year when they realized their permanent school building would not be ready. And so that's the reason why they can't stay at 411 Wales and they're in need of new space. And then in regards to the steps that we and they took looking for other space, of course, first they reached out to the Department of Education to see if there was any co-location space that they could be in. There wasn't any available. And so their primary needs as they looked for other space and what they discussed with the realtor is that it's 300 students. So they need approximately 30,000 square feet of space. And given the short timeline, they had about 6 or 7 months to find school space. It needed to be either built out as a school already or something very close to school space so that the renovations that would have to happen to the building could be minor enough to be completed within those 6 to 7 months. And then lastly, location. So they are a Community School District 7 school. And so their goal is to remain within Community School District 7. They have a middle school that feeds into this high school. And so proximity was important for those reasons.
Great.
Thank you.
That answers. Okay. So then, Mr. Lobel, you.
Yes. So I would have Jason discuss the compliance with the builder pavement plan. The building, of course, does have a certificate of occupancy from the prior BSA approval, but Jason, maybe you can discuss the differences and compliance with that plan.
Yes, this is Jason Chimura with KSS Architects. We were the architect of record for the original application in 2014, and as we are with this resubmission as well. To Richard's point, yes, the builder's pavement plan indicated street trees and curb cuts and the like on that prior application. That work was completed, and that project achieved its certificate of occupancy with that completed work. This obviously proposes no changes to any of that work. As far as the comment or the note about the bubbling indicated on the plans represents the work that was completed at the original application, so the Hecate occupation of this site after the original BSA approval. So it captures that as-built condition.
So
It does not mean to represent any proposed work.
Great, okay. Okay, so everything that's bubbled, but that, I guess, was my question, is not everything that you circled is different, is what's different between the approved drawings and the and the proposed or the existing, the as-built conditions. I was curious about how you picked what you circled.
We based it on what we thought was a copy of the approved BSA plan. So if that's not accurate, we can dig those up again and add more bubbles. But yeah, we were working from what we believe to be the approved set.
Okay, so actually, so then if Mr. Lobel and Ms. Baton could make sure that Mr. Chimura gets a copy of the approved plans that you sent to us, and that Mr. Chimura's office could then make sure that the bubbles are reflective of all of the changes, okay?
Make sure of that, yeah.
Sure.
And then, of course, a clean set signed and sealed.
Yep.
Okay, great. Anything else from the architect? No. Okay, so
Nope.
Mr. Lobel, is there anything else you wanted to add, Mr. Chimura?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
There should also be, sorry to interrupt, there should also be a clean set.
There is a clean set.
Oh, okay, okay.
I'm just saying it's the bubbled set that's not quite right.
Right. No, I understand. Okay.
Okay, and who else would you like to speak on this?
So I think that the remaining comments centered on compliance and satisfaction of the agencies, DOT and DEP. And I understand that Tracy had received recent feedback, but we do have Noah and Matt here from AKRF if there are any additional questions.
Okay. Tracy, do you have any questions? Ms. Benke, do you have any questions that you would like to have addressed? Or okay.
No, I have no questions. We did hear again from DEP. They were not able to issue the sign-off letter. They needed more time to, I guess, to review the DOT sign-off we got this afternoon.
Okay.
So
Mr. Lobel, or maybe it's I'm not sure exactly who's managing this, Ms. McBurney. What's the schedule on when you need a decision by? I mean, for instance, the reason I'm asking is because the simplest way to do this is for us to put you on quickly for maybe like the next hearing, but I don't know if that's enough time for those environmental sign-offs. And then close at that hearing, and then a decision at the following one, because we're not doing closed votes with these videos, right? So that's kind of my question. Does it have to be in June? Basically, our next hearings are June 1, 2, and June 15th. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. So
June 29th. Yeah.
right, and the end of June, that kind of things. You don't really have any construction work to do, right? Oh, are you muted? I'm sorry. No, you're not muted. Go ahead, Ms.
Hi, yes. So I think that the June timeline could work for the school. I think having, surety that they would have a place to move into. And also, while there's not construction to do, we do need to turn over the space. The Hecate School will be moving out, and we'll have to turn over the space to the American Dream School. So the June timeline would work for the school.
Okay, so an end June decision would work for you then. Is that right? Okay.
Yes, that's right.
And so we hope that we get the sign offs, the only sign off we're waiting for, Tracy, right, is noise and air quality. Is that right?
Right. And I do believe they were close to being satisfied. They just needed the DOT letter. So hopefully it might be in days.
Days. Okay, excellent. All right, so we will schedule accordingly. Thank you, entire team, for having called in. Oh, actually, I didn't, did I ask? No, for public.
Yeah, you didn't ask the public.
Sorry. So I'm now inviting, and I should have done this before, if there are any members of the public who would like to speak on this application. Tony, can you read the application number?
Sure, it's 2020-27BZ 403 Concord Avenue, the Bronx.
Okay. And if you would like to call in about this, a member of the public, please call 646-558-8656. And the ID meeting number on Zoom is 929-4808, 0954. And I'm going to give it the full 30 seconds because that's how long the time delay is.
So there's no regular submission, you're just waiting for environmental, right?
No, okay, so that's true. We can go through the submission. So you could just memorialize in writing.
So I was going to ask him about.
Yeah, exactly what Ms. McBurney said about their criteria, because that's finding, and our council's going to need that finding, right? And also, of course, there is that submission just to clarify the bubbling, and I think that was it, right?
I'm not sure if there will be any notes for the plans. I'd have to review the EAS.
Okay.
But if there are any environmental notes that should be added to the plans, and then we'll need the final EAS with the sign-offs once they're ready.
Right. Okay. So for the team to note that if there are environmental conditions, those should be shown on the drawing. So that's for the architect, and also for council, of course, to make sure that for Mr. Lobel and Ms. Baton to note that that should be covered in the drawings and in the EAS. Okay. Okay then. So seeing nobody calling in, let me just check. Then I think we're good. So thank you very much, and we'll let you know ASAP about the next hearing. Okay.
Thank you, Chair, Commissioners.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Okay, this concludes the public hearing for May 19th, 2020, 2 p.m. session.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Take care, everybody.
Thank you very much.